System information. Because I personally promoted the birth of the miniature arc reactor in advance, a special series of missions, Iron Man Origins, was triggered. Mission 1. Every beginning is difficult, was completed, rewarded with 2,000 experience points, and a purple epic random item box 1. The moment the arc reactor was powered on and started running, a system prompt appeared in Bucky's mind. The Iron Man Origins series of missions was officially opened, and then a purple box was directly rewarded. But think about it, objectively speaking, this mission should have been considered the initial opportunity since Bucky first met Howard Stark. Then Bucky rescued Howard, provided him with Hydra information, gained his initial trust, and then the trust continued to deepen little by little. Only when he faced the Hulk without hesitation did he gain Howard's true trust. Besides, Bucky can provide him with various kinds of help, and he has the opportunity to directly participate in the process of R&D in manufacturing. It took more than 100 days and countless energy and painstaking efforts to complete it officially. The reward of a purple box is just right, in line with Bucky's hard work. But Bucky didn't rush to open it, or put it aside after looking at it. Compared with the purple box, it is still the heart of steel that runs through the beginning and end of the MCU. Well, it is not the second generation of Iron Man in the anime, but the arc reactor in the heart of the steel suit, which is more attractive to Bucky. Although this is not actually the official version, it is much bigger than the one of the future nephew Tony. At most it is a 0.1 trial version. But it's worth Bucky's system scan. And because Bucky participated in the whole process of manufacturing and basically fully grasped its principles, as long as he has equipment and materials, he can make one himself. The scanning process is also fairly painless. But it is a pity that this trial version of the arc reactor is already a purple epic item, which belongs to fuel and battery energy sources. Although it is immortal, that is, it is rarer than ordinary epics, but it is not in the box. The unique one that is issued means that more than one can be manufactured. This is actually a good thing, after all, it is a consumable. But for Bucky, purple epic equipment requires 8, technology, attributes to unlock the corresponding production expertise. This is for the main intelligence attribute, and you must first increase the intelligence attribute to 20 points to unlock the orange legendary level quick crack plugin production specification. That is to say, at least another 12 levels must be upgraded before the system version of the arc reactor can be made, which is simply far away. But Bucky is not in a hurry. Even if he makes an arc reactor now, he doesn't have a steel suit. And even if you have all of them, Bucky can also try to make it yourself in reality, which he participated in the whole process, and the learning ability provided by his intelligence attribute also allows him to keep up with Howard's thinking. Learning is no problem. And it is not only trust, but also Bucky's spoiler posture, which has guided Howard in many places, given him a lot of inspiration, and saved him many detours. Howard regards Bucky as a confidant who can truly understand his genius ideas. He didn't intend to guard against or restrict Bucky, but answered every question, and he didn't even hold back the core knowledge of Bucky. Howard also only said that the iron suit should be researched first, but he never said who would use it at that time. He just said that it depends on how far the endoskeleton can achieve and whether it can provide enough protection for him, an old man, but it seems there are other ideas too. In short, Bucky was not too disappointed that he couldn't make the system version of the arc reactor. While the arc reactor was in trial operation, checking its stability, and reading various operating parameters, Bucky first opened a purple box to have fun. System information. Open the purple epic level random item box. Get the item, MTOD-12. MTOD-12, purple epic, nicknamed Little Flathead. It is an experimental infiltration device of a military technology company. The whole body is made of titanium alloy nanofibers. Guest auxiliary terminal, etc. Perfect reconnaissance and surveillance equipment. Ooh, Xiaopingtu. Bucky was very impressed with the little robot in this game. It was an experimental prototype of a large company at the time, equipped with the most advanced technology in the world, and helped the protagonist invade the game with the strongest defense and security force at that time. One of the big places, the name of the very name of the Yellow Leopard Cyan Bai building. Bucky summoned Xiaopingtu from the system, and saw that it was the same as in the game. Its body was a small rectangular box of primary metal color, and it had 6 spider-like long legs. The exquisite shape was very unique. The beauty of substance over style. With the thought in Bucky's mind, Xiaoping's mechanical eyes lit up with blue light, and the 6 mechanical legs stretched to stand, and then entered the optical camouflage stealth mode. Then, following Bucky's thoughts, the 6 mechanical legs crawled rapidly, climbing from the ground to the wall in the blink of an eye. Following the absorption of the 4 mechanical feet on the ceiling, One mechanical foot lightly unscrews the screw of the air vent baffle, and the other mechanical foot lifts it into the air vent, closes the baffle, and instantly laser welds it. The whole process was silent, and there was really no movement at all. This made Bucky extremely amazed, but it's a pity that the equipment of the system can only be manufactured systematically, and in the final analysis it is the product of superpowers. He can dismantle it and remove the small flat head himself, but that will only make the system think that the device is damaged, and then turn it into a pile of scrap metal. Otherwise, he doesn't have to work hard to follow Howard. The technology of cyberpunk is enough for him to study. Bucky was very satisfied with Xiaopingtu's ability, but he didn't take it back directly, but just let Xiaopingtu pass through the vent, ran out of the laboratory, and then ran all the way to the street. Its 6 mechanical legs flipped rapidly, and it could run at a speed of up to 40 kilometers per hour. After a while, it ran to little Daisy's school, and then stayed quietly on the ceiling outside the little guy's classroom. Xiaopingtu has a very strong battery life. It can be charged for 2 hours and run at full power for 48 hours. It can also use signal towers and satellites as relay stations to transmit signals. It can be operated no matter how far it is from Bucky. Even if the signal is lost, it can also be activated. Autonomous action mode, looking for possible signal sources, trying to reconnect with the operator. With it, the operator can be the perfect lurker, killer, hacker, and nanny. Bucky no longer has to worry that he can't take care of little Daisy at any time, especially when he has provoked a stronger opponent. There is a little flat head to keep an eye on little Daisy at all times, and then set it to the guardian mode, intelligently distinguishing whether the little guy is in danger, and notifying Bucky at any time, so that Bucky can use the little flat head to release quick cracking skills on possible enemies. No more worrying about school bullies picking on little ones. Well, that's a little too much. But if there are any secret agents, ninjas, etc. who are blind and want to touch the little guy, Bucky will let him know how the cheater is able to spoil his daughter. Uncle, get up. Monday morning always triggers people's deeper nostalgia for the quilt. Of course, under normal circumstances, Bucky would not have this problem. Because he hasn't slept normally for a long time, he always sleeps systematically, and when he closes his eyes and opens them, he is considered to have slept. However, the miniature arc reactor was successfully operated yesterday. It will take time to continue to operate, test its stability, and cope with the limit parameters of various environments. Bucky gave himself a rare vacation. It's not that he doesn't look forward to it, doesn't look forward to the arc reactor being completed in a blink of an eye, and then shrunk down to the size of a cupcake, and smashed out with the iron suit Dwang. But after 100 days of high-intensity work, Bucky's nerves were stretched to the limit. Not to mention Howard Stark. Although the old man didn't feel it himself, Bucky looked at his pair of dark circles under his eyes, thinking about the days when he drank coffee as water every day. He was really afraid that once he closed his eyes, he would never be able to open them again. Then, while the old man was complaining angrily, he was driven out of his own laboratory directly, and Jarvis, the old gentleman butler, came to pick him up, stuffed him directly into the car, and asked Jarvis to take him to see him. Maria, he must not be let go without rest for at least 3 days. Bucky himself also had a rare natural sleep, not to mention, although he didn't have the high quality of sleep in the system, he was woken up by the little guy in a daze, and then gave the little guy a bear hug in his arms, and slept back into the cage. It feels really good. However, within a few minutes of returning to sleep, Bucky was woken up by the doorbell again. Really, Uncle Smelly, I'm almost late. The little guy actually enjoyed this kind of intimacy. After all, the time she and Bucky spent together recently finally had to reduce some time when Bucky had no other time to compress. But at this time, he decisively threw the pot away. Morning, Hill, please come in. You bastard, you obviously asked me out. Look at this, if I don't call you, you will oversleep, right? Except for the initial embarrassment, whenever Maria Hill appeared in front of Bucky, she was always dressed in a delicate, beautiful and glamorous image. At this time, she is wearing a light-colored shirt with wide-leg high-waisted pants and high-heeled shoes, holding a white bag in her hand, and matching her delicate appearance, she has the aura of an elite. On the contrary, Bucky, after the initial act of being cool, let himself go more and more. Uncle. Aunt Hill, you are here. This time the little guy didn't lower his tone, but was still very happy. The initial defenses, as Hill took care of her from time to time during this time, have long since disappeared. The little guy is not a bad-tempered child. Although Hill has a cold temper, he is not against taking care of children. Of course, the little guy is also very well behaved, and the relationship between the two has improved a lot. Yes, school open day, are you looking forward to it? Hill asked with a smile. Today is the recruiting day of the after-school activity club of the little one's school, and it is also open to the parents of the students to visit, so that parents can know what their children are doing in school. When Bucky heard that most of the students went with their parents, and he hadn't seen Hill for more than 10 days, he casually mentioned that Hill was quite interested. After making a simple breakfast, when the three of them ate together, Bucky asked, "Have you thought about signing up for a club?" He is always worried that the little guy won't be able to make friends. Well, distance running, karate and the radio station. Why? Bucky didn't expect the little guy to answer so neatly, and it's not a computer club. This will come in handy when the zombies break out. What? Cough. Bucky had a question mark on his face, but Hill couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of mango smoothie. Did you show the little guy a zombie movie? No, shouldn't I do such a silly thing? I also specially ordered the videotape of Dawn of the Dead. So, little Daisy dug out the videotape. I happened to come and see her while she was watching it, but she was so frightened that she couldn't sleep. She also said that the best way to deal with insomnia is to stay up late. What can I do? Hill rolled his eyes as he said that, which means that it is not your fault that the child is so difficult to take care of. Ah ha ha. Bucky, who failed to get rid of the blame, was slightly embarrassed. School. When the trio of Bucky, Hill, and Daisy made their debut, they attracted a lot of attention. Bucky didn't exaggerate like Hill, as if he was going to a business salon or a banquet, which made other students' mothers subconsciously envy. But although he is just an ordinary jacket and plaid shirt and jeans and hiking shoes, after all, his appearance is there. There is also a kind of yuppie who is a bit lazy but has a bit of a researcher temperament. He doesn't look like an ordinary office worker. Even if he is dressed like this, it matches Hill's aura and looks very right. Plus the beautiful little guy dressed up by Hill. It was only then that many students discovered that such a cute girl. Why haven't they noticed it in ordinary times, and she just transferred from another school these 2 days? And how can an Asian have a white father and mother? For a moment, the three of Bucky became the focus of everyone, but what are Bucky and Hill doing, that they would be frightened by the gaze of a group of ordinary people? The powerful aura exuded by the two inadvertently, just glanced casually, and most people subconsciously avoided their eyes, and only whispered after the three walked over. The open day is not a parent meeting, but the classrooms of each class are occupied by student clubs for display and recruitment, which is a bit like a carnival event. Bucky and Hill took the little guy to visit casually, of course, karate and so on were omitted. Even if the little guy really wants to learn, is it just a show to be Bucky, the winter soldier who has mastered so many murderous fighting skills? Let the little guy learn karate, where will Bucky put his face? However, the little guy is also very popular, and he doesn't have much interest in the club. If he has that time, he might as well go home and read computer books, and study how to bypass the password Bucky set for the computer. But Bucky and Hill saw everything new. Bucky is a kid in 2 lifetimes. He himself has always been an exam-oriented education. Since junior high school, his physical education teacher has been beaten to death by other teachers and fed to dogs. He has never had such extracurricular activities in his memory. Hill is similar, even she was recruited by S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy very early and has been living a semi-military campus life. Press club? Hey, isn't that our new geography teacher here, uncle? When the little guy passed by a teacher, he was attracted by an amiable image with a high hairline and a smile. Only to find that her uncle and Aunt Hill next door were staring at the hairline above the glasses, with the corners of their mouths twitching. Several. Welcome to the press club, Hill? Mr. Ba, Johnny. Phil. Why are you here? Yes, the new geography teacher at Little Daisy's school is Phil Coulson, an elite S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who suffered from hairline problems at a young age. However, Brother Hairline obviously didn't come for Little Daisy. He, a hardcore fan of the Big Muscle team, wanted to get close to Bucky so that he could find out about Bucky's good friend, but he kept the task as busy, and the opportunity has never been found. He'd only heard from Melinda May, too, because they were good friends with the secret agent who sent young Sky to the orphanage. He didn't even know what the little guy looked like, and he didn't even know Agent Maria Hill, who had met several times. Was he dating Bucky? The amount of information was too much, and he was far more shocked than Bucky and Hill. Uncle, do you know this teacher? Little Daisy only heard her classmates talk about it when Brother Hairline passed by, and she didn't know Phil's name yet. Yeah, at Uncle's nightclub. Cough. Bucky subconsciously blurted out. Both Phil and Hill coughed suddenly, and Hill twisted Bucky's soft waist, but unfortunately, with Bucky's defensive power, the effect was not achieved at all. There are students around here, but fortunately Bucky's voice is not loud, and he changed his words in time, changing nightclub to evening bowling club. Otherwise the Hairline brothers would have to die on the spot. Daisy, this is. Bucky was about to introduce, but he didn't know if Brother Hairline had an alias. Phil Coulson. Well, just as straightforward as Hill. Daisy, take a stroll around first, uncle, and chat with acquaintances. Anyway, with Xiaoping following, Bucky is not worried about the little guy getting lost. I'll take her there, you guys talk. Although Hill was also very curious, but the Shield's Information Division management principle made her subconsciously not want to inquire more, and Bucky, who could speak, would naturally tell her. So she just nodded, took the little guy's little hand and left. Long time no see, Johnny, let's walk around too. Brother Hairline was really afraid that Bucky would say another word that would kill him on the spot, so he hurriedly pulled Bucky away. The two came to a secluded corner, and Bucky couldn't help asking. Brother, you come here to be a teacher. You have some mission, right? Which high-ranking official or illegitimate son of a rich man goes to school here and is targeted by the kidnapper group? It sounds like the plot of some movie. Of course it's not, I'm just on vacation. Really? Bucky expressed doubts. You good old man's aura is too deceptive. Thank you. Never meet your idol. Brother Hairline suddenly flashed this sentence in his mind. He wanted to be his idol, and he would stay the same as his idol's good brother. He didn't have to die, he died on the spot, that's it. And with Brother Hairline's explanation, Bucky also knew, this is really a coincidence. He was really just on vacation. He had just finished a mission and was injured again, and he was injured twice in a row, once with a broken arm and once with a broken rib. It's not a ruthless, brainwashed, whitewashed garbage organization like Hydra. Well, at least the chief of Agent Hairline is not from Aegis Hydra, and he is directly forced to take a long vacation, and he is not allowed to return to work if he fails the medical examination. And he is restless. Lying at home to recuperate his injuries is more uncomfortable than letting him endure the pain to perform the task. Then he saw the information about the recruitment of geography teachers here in the newspaper, and thought of his retirement plan, which was to become a primary school teacher. Yes, Brother Hairline's mental age is as old as his hairline, and he has already had a complete life plan. So he applied for the job on a whim. With his special agent ability, that is, the hairline problem, otherwise, the hero of the urban soldier Wang Wen, who is a proper agent and returned as a teacher, would naturally succeed in the application easily. To be honest, I really like this kind of teaching and educating people, and have such an ordinary and fulfilling life. I really want to continue doing it. The Hairline brothers went undercover in a criminal group several times but didn't get into the show, but they did this time. Bucky remembered that in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. drama, this guy was captured by the artificial intelligence robot Ada, and after putting his consciousness into the virtual cyberspace frame, he was set as a middle school teacher and himself conspiracy guy who makes soap. Also, in a certain version of Ultimate Spider-Man anime that I have seen, Brother Hairline is the principal of Little Spider's school. Little Daisy's school once again produced Mary Jane. The little spider who can't be mistaken is transferred here again, right? But according to Brother Hairline, this is just a temporary idea. After he passes the medical examination, he will go back to work as an agent. Bucky also briefly explained a few words to Brother Hairline, mainly about Hill's situation, just saying that she was cooperating with him on a project on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. As for helping take care of little Daisy, if he doesn't help or attract more attention, that's what he should do. The Hairline brother naturally understands, his strong communication skills, apart from the harmless and deceptive face of humans and animals, it will definitely cause trouble. That's why in the future, he can talk and laugh happily with his nephew Tony and Thor, and it also became an opportunity to need the Avengers together. Of course, he sacrificed his life for this. After bidding farewell to Coulson, Bucky quickly found Hill and the little guy with the crew cut position. The two went to the indoor gymnasium, and Bucky followed to see that it was quite lively inside. Who is this kid? Bucky came to the auditorium, watched the excitement on the basketball court, but also found that there was a white little sister wearing glasses next to the little guy. This is Jessica Campbell, my new friend. Jessie is a year older than me, but we've all been having lunch and chatting lately. Hello. The little guy was a little timid, not as open and cheerful as Mary Jane. Hi. Nice to meet you. Bucky smiled kindly at the little guy's new friend, but the girl with glasses blushed a little. I don't know if it's introverted, or she has the potential to be a good-looking dog at a young age. But after Bucky said hello, he turned his attention to the excitement of the basketball court below. Because of this excitement, it was not the enrollment of the basketball team or the cheerleading team, although the excitement was caused by these two groups of people. The basketball team and the cheerleaders formed a circle, and there were two 11 or 12-year-old boys in a real PK. And this wasn't Bucky's nightclub, and it wasn't his nephew Tony who was beaten. Bucky just wanted to watch the fun. The same is true for Hill, it's just children playing around, and he just uses it as a negative lesson to keep little Daisy away from this group of energetic troublemakers. Hill frowned a little until a little girl of Latino and white race squeezed into the crowd to persuade the crowd, but was pushed away and fell directly to the ground. Look, this is the consequence of girls not being able to protect themselves. Johnny won't let you learn karate, so you let him teach you 2 moves. If a brat bullies you, beat him hard. Hello, is this the right way to educate your children? Bucky didn't have such thoughts at all, but felt that these words fit his temper very well. Stop it. Don't fight anymore, Johnny, stop it. Hey, is the brat who fights called Johnny? Don't fight again. A 18-year-old girl of mixed race, Latino and Caucasian, failed to persuade her to fight but was pushed to the ground, which aroused the anger of her younger brother Johnny, who beat him even harder. She was so angry that she cried, but there was nothing she could do. And this is still their territory. It's good that Johnny won't win with them. This one has the upper hand, and they will naturally have someone to sideline. And it's getting more and more chaotic, seeing people pushing and crowding. It's just someone accidentally fell and wanted to crush her. However, the girl closed her eyes and curled up in fright, but she didn't wait for the feeling of a heavy object pressing on her body. Instead, I heard a loud shout, "Hey, enough." When she opened her eyes, she saw that the crowd had dispersed, and a group of boys kept retreating to expand the encirclement. In front of her stood a tall and broad figure, a slender and fit man with 2 arms, one for her younger brother. Johnny and another boy grabbed the clothes on the back and picked them up. Is the school a place for you to gather crowds and make trouble? Everyone disperses, what should you do? The person who fights is naturally Bucky. Before the 2 brats fought, they could still watch the excitement, but a little girl was pushed, and the one-on-one fight was about to develop into a gang fight. Bucky couldn't watch the excitement. So in the past, it was easy to separate the crowd, and one by one in each hand, it was picked up by the 2 fighting brats to separate. And Bucky stared, not to mention a group of 12 or 13-year-old boys. Even the local hooligans on the street could feel weak in fright, and after 2 or 3 reprimands, all the group of boys were scared away immediately. Several little girls in cheerleading costumes who were onlookers also ran away in fright. On the basketball court, Bucky T was left with 2 children with bruised noses and swollen faces in an instant, and behind him was a girl lying on the ground with teary eyes. Like Bucky bullying the kids? Have you had enough? Bucky put down the 2 boys and asked angrily. The 2 boys are full of vigor, but it's not that they don't know what to do. They are held up in midair by one hand. In the world of children, strong strength means cheating, and it is true that they fought, although their necks are still stuck. He insisted on being dissatisfied, but no one dared to speak out. Shake hands and say sorry to each other. When the 2 boys heard that Bucky not only accepted him when he didn't see any good, but also turned into a strong man who became more and more serious, they immediately stared. Of course they didn't dare to stare at Bucky, but stretched their necks like 2 little roosters and stared at each other. Johnny. The girl also stood up at this time, wiped her eyes, and her delicate face turned into a little tabby cat. I see, Sue. Hey, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnny shouldn't have beaten you so badly. The golden-haired white guy named Johnny stretched out his hand provocatively with a look of disdain for his sister. This virtue reminded Bucky of a certain nephew who didn't smoke, and he almost couldn't help giving the guy in front of him a slap on the back of the head. Fortunately, the kid on the opposite side resisted not pulling the guy in front of him. Instead, he squeezed Johnny's hand hard, said vaguely, "The most worthless," turned his head and ran away. Sir. Thank you for your help, and I'm sorry that this happened to you. The girl was really polite, and pulled her younger brother to sincerely apologize to Bucky, but the little golden retriever looked around in a foolish manner. Aren't you students of this school? The children in the beautiful country develop early, say they are 12 or 13-year-old boys, and the one who fought with the little golden retriever reached Bucky's chin. Doesn't the little golden retriever look like he should go to junior high school? This elementary school does not have a junior high school. Sure enough, Johnny was a little bit wild. If it wasn't for the fact that the little girl looks very educated, and the little golden retriever doesn't look like a street stalker, Bucky really wants to give this guy a hard time in the corner, and those from other schools who dare to go to little Daisy's school will cause trouble. Don't you know that this film is covered by the Winter Soldier and the Hairline Brothers? Follow me. Seeing a security guard coming over at the entrance of the gymnasium, Bucky carried the little golden retriever away, and the girl followed behind with a little worry. The persuasion is over. Why did you bring it out? Maria Hill naturally brought the little guy along with her little friend Jessica Campbell. These two are not students of the school. Bucky led the crowd to his silver gray Ford Mustang, opened the trunk, took out the first aid kit, and asked the girl to treat the little golden retriever's wound. The girl breathed a sigh of relief. Although the man and woman brought 2 children, no matter how you look at it, they will not do anything to the siblings, but she still wants to save face. Well, she can only listen when she is reprimanded. Crying for a week. Dude, your car is so cool, can you let me drive it? The little golden retriever is really not polite, and he is a motorcycle fan. Jonathan Storm. Seeing his brother's virtue, the girl finally pinched the little golden retriever's arm in a hurry. This name. I go, Human Torch. The little girl's name is Sue, the invisible girl Susan Storm? When Bucky came to his senses, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. Did he meet the wife and brother-in-law of the future god? By the way, the little golden retriever looks familiar. This kid is at least 5 or 6 points similar to the childhood appearance of his good friend Steve in the original memory. New York is really Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and you can meet 2 future superheroes when you walk around the school. But at this moment, the siblings were still children, and Susan taught Johnny a lesson, so that he was finally honest and told why they came back here. It's nothing new, even though Johnny is only in the 7th grade, the 2nd year of junior high school, he's already a big wave. 2 days ago, he fell in love with a little girl in the mall, and he persevered all the way here. Only then did I find out that the little beauty is famous. She is the little girlfriend of the basketball captain, but Johnny and his nephew Tony have the same virtues, and they still want to continue flirting, so the previous scene happened. Mr. Franklin Storm, who are you? Hill asked suddenly. This question made the little golden retriever a little flustered, knowing the parents? It's our father. Bucky asked Hill with his eyes, he didn't know this. Dr. Storm is chief of surgery at the Hearst Teaching Hospital and one of the most eminent cardiothoracic surgeons in New York. Hill, the de facto owner of the hottest nightclub in Brooklyn, obviously has collected all kinds of information from all walks of life in New York, and happens to know this Dr. Storm. Although doctors are not capitalists, they are already one of the richest people under capitalists, just like Rachel's father in Friends, who can support 2 prodigal daughters after divorcing half of the family property. Moreover, as a human being, it is inevitable to get sick, and the social influence of top famous doctors is very high. But Bucky is still more interested in the future Invisible Woman and Human Torch. Your name is also Johnny. What a coincidence, then you are not an outsider. If there is a little misunderstanding, why don't you just pretend it never happened? Susan asked Bucky and Hill's names politely, and the little golden retriever immediately made friends. This guy is also like Rachel's sister, not afraid of anything, but afraid that his father will cut off his pocket money. Sure enough, he was slapped severely by his sister again. Sir, can you leave a contact information? I want my father to personally thank you too. Hey Sue. The girl didn't care about her brother's life or death, or in other words, she wanted to expose her brother's heinous behavior and let her father teach him a lesson. So when Bucky didn't care about it and just asked them to call a taxi to leave, he asked for contact information instead. It can be seen that although the siblings should only be half related by blood, their relationship is really good. Johnny just screamed for forgiveness, but was not angry at all. Seeing Johnny being carried away by the ear by Susan, one can imagine that the future will be miserable. Bucky finally smiled, and the little episode was a good ending. Although Bucky really wants to keep in touch with the future Marvel F4's Invisible Woman and Human Torch, well, it's just the Invisible Woman. Johnny is a sucker, and it's best not to see each other again. But even Susan Storm is only a girl in her 20s and 8 years now, and there is really a generation gap, so she asked Maria Hill to leave her contact information. It just so happens that Hill wants to expand his network. New York's top cardiothoracic surgeon and celebrities are obviously good candidates to get acquainted with. The little episode passed quickly, and then Bucky and Hill brought little Daisy and her little friend, who was 1 year older than her, but looked thinner and more timid and silent Jessica Campbell took another look around campus. The little guy finally gave up learning karate and radio broadcasting to cope with the idea of losing the doomsday, and then he couldn't find a computer-related club, so he happily joined the homecoming club. After spending a pleasant day with Hill and the little guy, Bucky also finished charging and returned to Howard's laboratory, ready to invest in research and development again. The arc reactor is still testing its performance, and the plan of the two is to start designing an intelligent assistance system first. It is too early to mention artificial intelligence, But voice-controlled intelligent assistance systems are not difficult to implement. Howard is ahead of the times in man-machine dialogue, and Bucky is even better at it. It's not Bucky's system that helps him unlock it, but his self-taught computer programming. Well, there is still a system that helps him unlock it, but the system is just an auxiliary, and Bucky has really mastered this skill. But Bucky returned to the lab and didn't immediately start programming with Howard. Because Howard was busy with other things. It was nothing but a tube of blood that Bucky was very familiar with. A message from Dr. Banner. Well, he went to Brazil and settled down there, and he brought some blood samples and wanted us to do some tests for him. Although the research and development of the steel suit is at a critical moment, Howard still put down what he was doing. After all, he wants to develop the steel suit to deal with Hulk's problem, and if he can fundamentally solve Hulk's problem, it is naturally the best choice. He and Dr. Banner are also sympathetic. He is very happy to help Banner, and is also very curious about Hulk. And Bucky is also looking forward to it. It is not Samuel Stern who helped Bruce Banner this time, but Howard. Will such a huge change make Bannerhawk appear earlier? However, during this time, Howard really didn't have much energy left. He simply performed some tests according to Dr. Banner's request, then frozen and sealed the blood, and then sent back the encrypted message to Dr. Banner. Time flies by, indulging in research and development. It seems that 2 weeks have passed in a blink of an eye. Bucky is wearing an endoskeleton, which is now called inner armor. On the mechanical skeleton, there is a composite protective gear with a lead-plated layer, a titanium alloy wire and Kevlar fiber mixed protective layer, and a supermaterial cushioning layer. A 30 cm arc reactor was temporarily installed on the chest, and the reactor has external wires, which are connected to a pair of larger metal armored mechanical legs on his legs. Power output, mechanical sensing device. All parameters have been set. And the spine on the back of the lined armor has an interface connected to the data cable, which is connected to the computer controlled by Howard not far away. The data has been received and ready to be ignited for the first time. There is a slight blue light on Bucky's prosthetic eye. He is also directly connected to the armor and the computer, and the network access cabin directly assists in processing various information, and controls the operation of the armor through thinking. 3, 2, 1. Light the fire. Bucky ignited, and the bottom of a pair of mechanical legs roared instantly, ejecting bright flames and strong airflow. Boom. However, as the huge impetus increased bit by bit, Bucky, who was gradually rising slowly, suddenly soared into the sky like a monkey jumping into the sky. With a loud bang, Bucky's steel unicorn arm hit the ceiling hard, preventing Bucky's head from plunging directly into the ceiling. But Bucky, who controlled the flameout of the mechanical leg, also dangled with one arm hanging from the ceiling. The adjustment parameters of the power output are too large, and I need a smoother output curve. Bucky wasn't annoyed either. Experiments were just like this, with constant trial and error, finding out problems, making adjustments, and completing the work bit by bit. Finally, with the unremitting efforts of Bucky and Howard, the legs of the steel suit are completed, which can be lifted up smoothly, suspended in the air and freely controlled in height. Then there are the arms and limbs, which can reach any designated position in the hovering state. Finally, the assembly is completed, the driver is loaded, the sound and body motion auxiliary control system and so on. Finally, after a few more weeks, a 3.5 meter high, metal-colored giant steel suit was displayed in front of Bucky and Howard. This steel suit is actually more like the Iron Overlord in Bucky's memory, and it is taller and stronger than the Iron Overlord, with thicker armor and stronger output power. The steel suit is officially in operation. 3, 2, 1. Start. Bucky is still operating in the steel suit, and Howard's old arms and legs can't stand the toss. It wasn't officially completed in the end. Howard looked eager to think about it several times, but Bucky directly vetoed it. With the sound of Bucky's activation, the 3 electronic eyes in the shape of a Chinese character on the helmet of the steel suit lit up the same blue light in the gap in the chest. Unlike the Iron Overlord, the arc reactor on the chest is enclosed in the battlesuit, and it doesn't need to dissipate heat anyway, and something as conspicuous as 30 centimeters in diameter should be hidden, otherwise it will be scrapped in one shot. And the helmet is not the eyes of the Iron Battlesuit and the Iron Overlord, but 3 electronic eyes, which can quickly capture images and transmit them to the display screen inside the helmet, allowing the operator to see the outside world, and can switch between multiple imaging modes. Follow Bucky to take the first step while controlling the huge steel suit. That's one small step for Iron Suit, one giant leap for Iron Man. A fork in the road. Taking this step forward, Bucky really doesn't know what kind of origin and complete story will be described as the future Iron Man. But he still stepped forward firmly, followed by the second step, the third step, and then he started running with a dull sound that shook the floor. After running around the open space, after stopping, "Howard, have you recorded your exercise data? Well, you can try to light the fire." Howard looked at the steel suit with the love of an old father. This is his hard work and the crystallization of his wisdom. When people talk about Howard Stark in the future, the steel suit will be his most important handed-down work. And his child is about to take off. This flight is not only flying to the sky, but also flying to the future. Boom. A lump of steel weighing several tons fell from the sky from a height of more than 100 meters, smashed directly through the third-floor ceiling of Howard Stark's laboratory, smashed hard on the ground, and directly smashed a depression in the ground. "Bucky. Bucky. Are you all right?" Howard ran over from a distance with a fire extinguisher in hand, sprayed the smoking feet of the steel suit, then threw the fire extinguisher, went to get the electric drill, went to remove the bolts of the steel suit, and then used the hook on the slide rail remove the front chest armor of the steel suit. Thanks to the 80mm thick titanium alloy armor, the steel suit fell from the sky without any damage, and the arc reactor still glowed with blue light. Cough, cough, cough. Moreover, the cushioning performance of the inner protective armor is really good, and the cushioning layer and mechanical conduction offset most of the impact force. So Bucky only felt tight in his chest and dizzy, his eyes were full of gold stars, and he didn't vomit blood. Of course, this is Bucky, who is thicker than a bear and has two states of super berserk and explosive at the same time, so he is basically unscathed. Instead of Howard, an old man with old arms and legs, Guy Bibula will just leave. "Are you okay?" Howard was worried and a little scared. He had lost his temper like an old child before, and he had been tested so many times when he was angry. For the first official test flight, Bucky still refused to let him fly. It's obviously a big toy made by two people, so why can Bucky play alone? Young people don't talk about martial arts, and don't know how to respect the old and love the young at all, although he is only 2 years older than Bucky. But now, he knew why, and he also knew how much Bucky respected the old man. If Bucky didn't bully him and didn't let him play, Bucky, a super soldier, would fall like this. Send people. It's okay, cough, cough. Bucky waited for Howard to remove the arms of the steel suit, and removed the arms lined with protective armor, and then worked with Howard to rescue him from the steel suit. As soon as I stood up, I felt a little dizzy. When I looked at the system panel, I was in a state of dizziness and had a slight concussion. No matter how high the defense was, the brain, the most vulnerable part of the body, would still inevitably be impacted by this violent shock. Fortunately, if Bucky turns on the explosive gas state, he can fully speed up the body's self-healing speed. Bucky simply quits the super berserk but keeps the explosive gas until the chi is exhausted, and then he feels much more comfortable. Shaked. What went wrong? Howard just received a notification from Bucky, telling him to leave the laboratory quickly, and then the big iron mound fell from the sky. Bucky smacked his lips and said, "The jet engine is overloaded, we need a better cooling system, just relying on the jet feedback air cooling is not enough." Although it was thrilling, it was really not the most dangerous time along the way. Once he almost bumped into Howard directly and sent his elder brother away with his own hands. Both of them are used to this, it's just a small fall from high altitude, it's not a big problem. The two of them didn't even feel any setbacks, they were already used to it. Although it wasn't smooth sailing, encountering difficulties and solving them was an established routine. They have gone so far, and there is no difficulty that can make them worry. We'll succeed. Maybe you can add a liquid cooling device. But if you add copper pipes, is it a problem to withstand the impact? Continue to enhance the heat dissipation efficiency of the air cooling device? In that case, why not just make 2 injection systems? Anyway, the suit is as big as it is. The two of them entered the obsession mode as before, and now, Bucky has been studying and practicing continuously, and he can completely keep up with Howard's rhythm, and he no longer can only rely on the spoiler posture to hold a cup. By the way, the publishing house approached me and said that the first edition of 20 copies of your third book was sold out in 3 days, and you plan to print another 20 copies directly, and asked if you want to hold a signing event? Indulging in research and development is not like Sheldon and Rajesh, who stare at the blackboard all day long while staring wisely. After chatting a few words from time to time, Howard talked about Bucky's book. The third book that Bucky made was not Prisoner of Azkaban, but Sharkgrass, the first volume of A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. Moreover, it is accompanied by exquisite illustrations, directly hitting the restricted version. Even if you don't read the book, Just looking at the more than 30 pages of lifelike illustrations, you will feel like a big truck will run over you. So out of confidence in the author Bucky, this time to show respect to the old man, he directly used George R. Martin and empty. The publishing house has been salted fish for so many years, and has published a few academic works that Howard entertained himself, which cannot be understood by ordinary people's wisdom, and he still has to give the boss a bad foot. One printing is 20 copies. Now the warehouse rent almost higher than their wages. But Bucky was born out of nowhere. With 2 Harry Potter books and 1 shark grass, they finally saw their chance. Salted Fish also had dreams, so he wished he could just grab Bucky and manage these 2 books that would become centuries old. Big ip with bestseller potential. However, Bucky's idea is that I am not interested in money, and I see it as floating clouds. This is not hypocrisy and cupping, but when he was developing the steel suit, he really put his heart and soul into it. This is a man's romance. Who cares about knife music when you can control mechs to fly into the sky? Of course, after breaking away from obsessive research, Bucky is still very interested in Marnie, but he will not devote too much energy to writing books. More than 100 million, it is quite Buddhist, just use the time-traveling posture to make some investment. When I think about copying books, I copy 1 book, and when I am busy, I put it down. Anyway, Mr. Martin also publishes 1 book every 2 years, and then 5 or 6 years. How can I only enjoy this kind of waiting for myself? Bucky also plans to release A Dance with Dragons in 2011. Hello, Obi? Well, come to my lab in Brooklyn. Just when Bucky and Howard were investing in a new round of steel suit improvement projects, replacing the jet engine with 2 parallel plans, Howard suddenly received a call. I'll go to the experiment outside and wait for someone to come. Is something wrong? When Bucky heard the name Obi, his heart skipped a beat. It was not the first time he had heard this name, and he naturally knew that Obi was Obadiah Stanislav, the second largest shareholder of the Stark Group, and a personal friend of Howard. Needless to say, Obadiah, the future Iron Overlord and the villain of Iron Man 1, did not miss his nephew Tony. But during this period, he was still Howard's most trusted friend, good business partner, and most capable partner. Howard was responsible for designing weapons, and Obadiah was responsible for selling them. Did you come to Howard to discuss some business matter? Bucky was thinking about this, but he heard Howard say, "You helped me observe this person secretly." Hey, Howie, Howard's nickname. After working for so long, have you come up with anything good? The company is looking forward to your next masterpiece. Is it this thing? Bucky's prosthetic eye is connected to the camera in the outside room, looking at a strong, bear-like, aggressive bald man in his 40s, wearing a high-end suit, holding a cigar. He doesn't look like a coup and the second largest shareholder of a big company, but rather like a boss of mafia. Obi patted the gray-haired Howard's arm, looking like a good brother who didn't see him, and called him Hoy. Howard also smiled, and the relationship between the two was very close. Yes, the jet individual aircraft is still under study. Obi, the company's business, you work harder. Next to Howard is a device that is a bit like the last individual aircraft in Kick-Ass 1. This is a small device that Bucky made by himself with Howard, who is a great power, in order to verify what he has learned. Stuff. Of course, don't worry about my work. It's always been like this. By the way, the matter you asked me to investigate has come to fruition. I didn't expect it to be a small warehouse supervisor. The company has such a moth. It's really shocking. Angry. Obi had a heartbroken look on his face, but Howard remained calm. Well, handed it over to the police? Of course he reported to the police after the investigation was clear, but after he knew he was found out, he committed suicide at home in fear of crime. Is that so? Does he have a wife and children? If so, find a name and give them a pension. Who ye? You are too soft-hearted. If you want me to say, forget it, I will listen to you. Thanks a lot. Where to say, speaking of it, it was my dereliction of duty that put you in danger. Do not blame you. Obi blamed himself. Howard was very relieved, and then the two talked about the business of the Stark Group, and took out some documents for Howard to sign. And the two were good family members, and Obi cared about Howard's body, Maria and Tony, and then he left a folder and got up to leave. Howard picked up the folder, got up and left the room, then unlocked the fingerprint and pupil identification combination lock, and came to the real laboratory. Have a look. Howard hands Bucky the folder. When I opened it, I found a case record of the police station. A certain warehouse manager of the Stark Group died of committing suicide after being discovered by theft. Howard and Obadiah said that the warehouse supervisor stole nothing but several Stark Group air-to-air tracking missile launch systems. That is, the last time Howard and Bucky took Bruce Banner away by helicopter, those two Wuji were used to attack them. This kind of thing can threaten national security. Every order, Stark Group must have a clear record, and there will be the company's own traceability method. Ever since Howard found out that the missiles were FC King designed and researched by himself, and manufactured by his own company, he ordered the company to investigate, and there were also agents he trusted to investigate the matter. Then, after many months, the result finally came, which came from a silverfish's little selfish desire. But, Bucky, what do you think? Then of course I feel that something must be wrong. Bucky took out some of the documents and handed them to Howard. Look at this evidence report, and this autopsy report, and... Howard waved his hand. I don't understand this, so don't keep it up. In the eyes of ordinary people, whether it is the scene of the crime or the results of the autopsy, the evidence is conclusive, clear, and beyond reproach. It is a simple suicide, but in my opinion, this is an excellent job. You mean? The process of this person's suicide seems reasonable everywhere, but it gives me the feeling that I want to kill him. I mean, if the Winter Soldier wants him to be killed by sharks, he will also make such a choice. All the arrangements are ingenious, and it can be said to be comprehensive, and he has produced evidence to let people discover many places that no one can think of. But in fact, this is what it needs to be, fully effective, without any handwriting. So what if an expert can see it? A layman can't see it. Sure enough. What about Obadiah? Did you see anything from the conversation I had with him just now? Although I'm sorry, when he said this, his pupils always dilated subconsciously. At least he didn't tell you the full truth. Bucky's prosthetic eye controls the camera. It doesn't receive low-resolution video, it is recorded after compression, and he can observe the original picture, and can also zoom in and out, and he can clearly see Obadiah pores on the face. And when a person is telling a lie, he can act very true, but the subconscious reaction of the body cannot be completely restrained. Even after professional training, the pupils will dilate uncontrollably. This is because the subjective consciousness cannot controlling. Although Bucky is not a lie detector, but he, or the original Winter Soldier, has too much experience in judging whether a person is lying, and there are some unavoidable preconceived spoilers, which makes Bucky very sure the result he saw. So the question is, Obi is selfish again, wanting to enrich himself, or... Obviously, the pain in Howard's expression at this time is the real pain. It's not that I feel sorry for Obadiah's use of power for personal gain. He has been a partner for more than 10 years. He knows Obadiah's personality too well, but he has always been flawed. It doesn't matter if Obadiah is greedy. He can create more for the company. Howard has long accepted this. There has also been a tacit understanding between the two. If Obadiah really just wanted to make some money this time, he would not make such a choice. He would directly imply that he knew he was wrong after Howard called out, and sincerely apologized. Ask for forgiveness, and then resolutely not to change. This is the routine between the two of them. It's not that Howard doesn't know what it means to be insatiable, he just didn't expect that the benefits of hundreds of millions may not be able to satisfy Obadiah's appetite. Or do you want to be replaced by a real man? Actually, the question is, did he come up with this idea alone, or? After Bucky finished speaking, the two of them looked at each other, and the name that didn't seem to exist recently flashed in their hearts. If Obadiah hadn't broken through Bucky's spoiler posture and suddenly had the idea of killing Howard and embezzling the Stark Group. So that's the most likely one, right? It's really haunting. Hydra has been doing nothing except for the Wuji raid. Bucky, who has been obsessed with research, has been a little forgotten recently. Unexpectedly, the mud was pulled out by pulling out the radish, but I wanted to find out the connection between the attack and Hydra. But in the end, Hydra and Obadiah Stanislas, who have been together for nearly 20 years, the big boss who will reveal his true colors later, will be implicated. But this is also the worst guess made by Bucky and Howard. There is no real evidence for the specific situation. Well, if Bucky is alone, no matter what the real evidence is, he can directly prove it freely, and then the Winter Soldier is dispatched, and he can just check it out for Obadiah and it's over. But Howard is a nostalgic after all. He and Obadiah have had a personal relationship for more than 10 years, and a business partner who has trusted each other for more than 10 years. He thinks that he should at least fully understand the matter before giving Obadiah one last chance. The idea of a typical American decent character is that the villain dies from talking too much, and the decent dies from being soft-hearted. Bucky and Howard can be regarded as good friends, and they are also partners in developing the steel suit together, but the acquaintance decades ago, and the friendship of less than a year, is obviously not as good as Obadiah. It's not that Bucky can't persuade him, but why hurt his feelings because of it? Obadiah is always going to be bad, just wait for him to show up. For the immediate matter, let's finish the steel suit first. Bucky is very clear that everything else is imaginary, only his own strength is real, and it is his real reliance. If Obadiah wants to make the boss bigger in advance, let him make it better, and if Hydra wants to do something, let them do it better. As long as he is strong enough, it's just another experience point and reward. Even if Obadiah remains the same, where will he go to brush the boss? Let the two continue to have a happy death. But right now, the matter of Obadiah should be put aside, and he will find a chance to find a way to get him later, and let's talk about actually getting the steel suit out first. Steel suit, 12th test flight. 3, 2, 1, fire. A week later, the size of the steel suit soared from 3.5 meters to 3.9 meters. Both arms and legs were equipped with dual jet engine systems. The power was lower than before, but it can be safely driven to the maximum output. And the official debugging is completed, and the test flight is carried out again. Yeah. But this time, Bucky felt the thrill of flying from Brooklyn to Long Island at a speed close to Mach 1.5. After a big circle, returned to landing safely, Bucky descended from the electronically controlled gate that was changed from the hole he broke through last time, and landed smoothly to the laboratory. Howard rushed over excitedly. Then, after opening the breastplate on the front of the suit that automatically opened after the improvement, he looked excitedly at Bucky, who also looked excited. It worked. They finally made it. Howard has tasted such excitement many times, but the sweetness of success still makes him unable to extricate himself. And Bucky, who had never tasted this kind of effort before and created a masterpiece handed down by himself, instantly understood Howard's mood. This kind of feeling is unforgettable once in a lifetime, and want more. Bucky came out wearing the inner armor, and the inner armor also turned into an automatic opening and closing. After opening, he jumped out and hugged Howard, shouting incoherently, cheering. At this time, it doesn't matter what kind of base love is not base love, just get up and it's over. Come on. What you've been waiting for, please. Now that the test flight is complete, Bucky also feels that the lining protection is in place. Even if he flies at a speed close to Mach 1.5, makes various movements in the air, and the supermaterial buffer layer with optimized structure makes him hardly feel any pain. Concussion shock. Then it's time for Howard, the main creator, the real father of the Iron Suit, to hug his son. Suddenly I don't want to go. Howard looked at the inner armor and the steel suit, feeling extremely relieved, but suddenly calmed down. It's not that he thinks that this steel suit has been played by Bucky countless times, and he needs to get a brand new one if he wants to play it. Instead, he looked at the masterpiece he created by himself, running perfectly according to his vision. That's enough. He was when Bucky gave him a non-standard gentlemanly salute and said the please. Suddenly, his heart became extremely peaceful, and he was no longer so excited that his heart was going to explode, and he was no longer eager to compete with Bucky for the right to use the steel suit. It was a sense of satisfaction from a complete life, which gave him that calm and incomparable comfort, and he was completely immersed in it. You sure? Bucky thought to himself, what are you being hypocritical at the moment? Hurry up and have a good time. Not sure, I'm on it. Well, Howard was indeed overly excited and hypocritical, but men are children all their lives, and such a big toy is right in front of them. What else is there to be hypocritical about? Seeing Howard put on the inner armor and walking a little crookedly, Bucky couldn't help laughing and teasing. Do you want me, a senior pilot in the steel suit, to give you some guidance? Howard gave Bucky an angry look, with a look of, are you teaching me how to do things? On his face. Back then, when he flew the plane carrying the S-Team and Carter, risking being shot down at any time, passing through the Hydra air defense line, Bucky was still a captive of Hydra, and Bucky would not be where he is today without him, just stay there go. He only took a few steps, and quickly got used to it. He slipped into the steel suit, started it, ignited it directly, and soared into the sky. Howard is worthy of being the craziest pilot in World War E. Even though he is old, his physical combat strength is similar to that of Sheldon, but this was taken into consideration in the initial design, with more power and mechanical assistance. He controlled the steel suit, and after shaking it a few times, he easily mastered the essentials of flying. Yeah. Howard, who at first made fun of Bucky for being excited like a child, also started yelling excitedly. Bucky didn't tell the truth, or he suddenly didn't have the heart to pay attention to Howard now. Because in his mind, the moment Howard got into the steel suit and started it, the system prompt sounded. System information. The series of missions, Iron Man Origin, and Mission 2, creating the Iron Man suit, were completed. Because you participated in the whole process and made important contributions, you became a key factor in the birth of the Iron Man suit. The task was upgraded to Iron Man suit, Father. After reading the mission information, Bucky couldn't help but look up at the sky. Janewar, from now on you will not only have a father, but you will also have another father. But put aside the ridicule first, let's see what good rewards are waiting for me. System information. The Father of Iron Suit mission is completed, rewarding 3,000 experience points, Purple Epic Random Item Box 1. It was another random purple box, and Bucky's sense of satisfaction rose to a higher level in an instant, and even the yelling from Howard, who was still flying, was deaf to his ears. I don't even care about the sense of ceremony before opening the box, just open it. System information. Open the Epic Random Item Box 1. Get Portable Printing Workshop, *1. Portable Printing Workshop, Purple Epic, special 3D printing equipment, which can input up to 3 sets of equipment production specifications of the highest epic quality, and the printing workshop can complete the production after inputting the corresponding consumables. Once the production specification is entered, it cannot be replaced. When Bucky saw the reward, he instantly felt that he didn't need the steel suit at all, so he took off directly. He was thinking that the system version of the arc reactor is of Purple Epic level, which requires 8 technical attributes, while his technical attributes are only 4, and he has to wait for his intelligence to increase to 20 before adding it, which is a gap of 12 levels of experience points. I don't know that it can only be made in the year of the monkey. It just so happens that the printing workshop can manufacture Purple Epic equipment at the highest level, but Bucky does not have an epic level production specification for the time being, and some of them are immortal, unique, and he can directly create them himself. Although the arc reactor is not the one in memory, if the arc reactor continues to shrink and improve bit by bit, it will be faster than the year of the monkey to the level made by the nephew Tony in the future. And that doesn't match the existing steel suits, so it's better to be cool first. As for the matching steel suit, Bucky can pull it out on his own. Yes, the production specifications of the iron suit scanned and entered into the system are green and excellent. It's not surprising, even though the steel suit is an epic-making product on this Earth, but it can be compared with the Purple Epic MTOD 12 Xiaopingtu. Compared with Xiaopingtu's technological content, the steel battlesuit without the arc reactor is a younger brother, and the green and sophisticated are just right. And it happens that the arc reactor is an item of energy source, which can be manufactured separately from the steel suit, and then loaded on the steel suit just like a gun is filled with bullets, an arm is filled with missiles, and a vehicle is filled with fuel. That is to say, Bucky's system version of Vehicle Iron Suit can also be manufactured. But Bucky was in no rush to make it. Because the steel suit is not fully formed, it only has complete action capabilities, and there are still many functions that have not been added. Such as weapon systems. What kind of weapon should we load on the steel suit? I think that the revolver must be equipped, and the 40mm grenade should also be loaded. Even with the weight of the steel suit, it is not too much to add a cannon. It can be loaded on the back. How about moving the barrel? And stop. You stop first. After Howard came back from the fun, he took a short rest and calmed down, and Bucky began to discuss with him how to load the steel suit with powerful enough weapons. Howard directly made a pause gesture. Why are you loading so many weapons? Fighting a war? Why don't we just build tanks? Don't forget why we made steel suits in the first place. That's right, if you really want to have a lot of firepower, it's not good for the two of you to get an apocalypse tank, but Howard's original intention was to deal with Hulk's situation, but Bucky really wanted an extremely powerful steel fighter clothes. Let's listen to Howard first. I think we still use the Hulk as the imaginary enemy, so no matter how strong the firepower is, it's useless. Why don't we proceed based on the fact that the Hulk is still based on human beings, whose body functions have many similarities with human beings. For example, we can install a noise generator to interfere with Hulk with strong noise, or flash bombs to interfere with vision. You can also spray lubricants, so that Hulk's feet can be oiled, or a strong irritating gas. By the way, you can also make freezing bombs, special warheads that encapsulate liquid nitrogen. Hearing that Hulk was tossing, Bucky also got excited and used his imagination to make suggestions. This meant that they were the only two here, and if there were more than one person listening, such a picture might appear in that person's mind. Bucky and Howard are holding a big bamboo shoot. You grab it, I'll grab it. So some modifications were made, and the arms of the steel suit were extended by a section, which was loaded with equipment such as sound wave generators, lubricating oil injectors, shock bombs, explosion-proof bright lights, and tear gas. Then since we don't use it for killing, why don't we add some auxiliary functions? For example, The steel suit is constantly improving and perfecting, but it is getting more and more deviated from Bucky's impression. But Bucky is also happy to see the success, and the foundation has been completed, but it is equipped with various modules. Bucky is also planning to quietly design a set of models equipped with various weapons, similar to Iron King and War Machine. Killing Machine. By the way, do you have a painting design? How about the red and gold color scheme? What kind of strange aesthetic is that? It can be said. Bucky asked Howard about the painting of the steel suit, and then proposed the classic red and bright gold color scheme in his memory, but Howard replied with, "I don't agree with your taste. It's still the classic red, blue and white color scheme, which is more acceptable. It's vulgar, isn't it?" Bucky curled his lips when he heard that, but the patriotism of the old people who came from the era of World War I is different from that of later generations. They really fought for freedom, not for, "I don't think you are free. I want to represent freedom and fight with you, and fight." In the process of continuous improvement of the steel suit, Bucky also worked on other projects. He made a mechanical arm with 2 mechanical legs, which looked quite Cthulhu style. Howard looked at it, and once again showed the expression of, "I can't agree with this taste, this is it?" On the basis of the intelligent assistance system, I wrote a human-computer interaction program that can receive sounds, perform fuzzy analysis, and then execute instructions. "Hey, little D, go get me a screwdriver." The little D, who was named Little D, had 2 legs and 1 arm, delayed for a moment, then made an OK gesture with his fingers, walked to the nearby production table, and picked up a screwdriver. Holding the screwdriver handle, he charged at Bucky. "Stop." Bucky hurriedly yelled to stop, and without letting Little D give the screwdriver tip, he just handed it to himself in a daze. "This is interesting," Howard said with a smile, but he was really not joking. He really appreciates this work, which involves various programs such as speech recognition, fuzzy analysis, and intelligent selection. Although the program written by Bucky is a bit rough, it is more like mental retardation than intelligence, but he sees that this is a correct direction, and the most important thing is the correct direction. He lamented once again that the hero sees the same thing, and how wise it was to bring Bucky over to do research together. He only wanted to find a durable experimental pilot, but he didn't expect to get one that could give. He has inspired a lot and helped him a lot. "Hey, I haven't seen you for a few days. How do you feel that the big beauty hill has become beautiful again? Hey, isn't this our great inventor? It's only been a few days. We haven't seen each other for 2 weeks. You really forget to eat and sleep. By the way, have you and Howard succeeded in that amazing invention?" Afterlife Nightclub. When the Iron Suit 1.0 is officially finalized, it has been debugged and painted, and it is waiting for a suitable opportunity to make its debut. Someone who is obsessed with research and development, Mrs. Maria Hill, whom he hasn't seen for several days, so on the first day after he was free, he played around with little Daisy for a while, and came to the nightclub. This time it was really successful, just waiting for an opportunity to make an appearance. "What the hell is it? Now you don't have to keep it with me, do you? Do you want to see it for yourself? You didn't carry it with you and wanted to take it out directly?" In the nearly half a year of R&D process, I only got along once at little Daisy's campus open day. I didn't think I was addicted to R&D all the time, but after I suddenly got idle. Bucky only felt that the longing he had accumulated all the time was faint. Maybe he only thought about it once a day. Maybe he only remembered it once a few days when he was most addicted, but every bit of it was accumulated deep in his heart, and now it seems it exploded all at once. As Bucky said, he was already nose to nose with Hill. As for Hill, who has always been elegant and calm, although he is still so glamorous and his eyes are a little playful, but where Bucky can't see, the roots of his ears are already blushing. "Go. I'll show you something good. Hey, I have something to do." Bucky took Hill's slender hand, dragged her to a deserted back alley, and then took out the things. Well, this naturally refers to Bucky summoning the Falcon's flying wings from the system. This Hill, who was originally blushing, was stunned by Bucky for who knows how many times. She originally thought that Bucky was really going to take out something, and she was thinking about some bad hobbies, no. But she didn't expect that she took it out, but it was different from what she had imagined. Unlike the steel suits that are getting bigger and bigger, the Falcon flying wings have undergone another revision during this period, becoming X003, becoming thinner and thinner, reducing weight again, and the flying wings are more like a pair of birds-class wings, and a pair of smaller jet engines are loaded on the wings to assist flight and control speed. "Come on, put on these goggles." Bucky took out a goggle from his pocket, put it on the dazed Hill, and put his arms around Hill. "Ready to take off." Ah. Hill gave a confused greeting, and then a strong pulling force came, and the question mark instantly turned into an exclamation point. Feeling that everything around her was getting smaller and smaller, and her ears were filled with the whistling wind, she could no longer maintain her cool and beautiful personality, and screamed like a little girl. In front of Howard's laboratory gate. "Hey, we've arrived at the station, shall we get off?" Bucky flew here with Hill, landed smoothly, retracted the Falcon's flying wings, and let go of Hill's arm, but the big beauty who was no longer glamorous still hung on him. Hill is like an octopus, with his legs wrapped around his waist. Bucky was wrapped tightly around his arms, his head hidden by his neck. It wasn't that Hill was timid, but it was too sudden. Without any preparation, he was taken off directly, flying at a speed of nearly 270 kilometers per hour, and habitually performed several gliding dives and rotations in the air. Who would be like Hill? She is not timid, she is just still in the human category. Arrive? Well, come down. It took Hill a long time to come back to his senses, looked around, and was sure that it was land, and then released the restraint on Bucky. He wasn't embarrassed either, but just blowing his messy hair indifferently, as if to say, it's just that, it's no different from riding a roller coaster. But the vibration pattern of the arms supporting Bucky directly betrayed Hill's mood. "This is the equipment you and Howard are researching. What is this called? Hey, where did it go?" Hill actually really wanted to beat Bucky up. Such a sudden attack almost embarrassed her, but force can't solve the problem. At least she can't solve Bucky with force, so she has to wait until later to get back on the spot. Now she is still more surprised by what Bucky showed her. Although the first experience was not wonderful, it was amazing enough. Bucky took Hill's arm and gave her a little support for her weak legs. This is the Falcon individual flying wing. This is not the real invention of Howard and I, it's just an incidental invention. The real invention is here. And that's just an accessory. What the hell is that real invention? Hill said that she was not psychologically prepared at all. If there is another more exaggerated than before, she will really break her defense. Bucky just locked the electronic lock with a prosthetic eye, an intrusion protocol opened it, and then brought Hill in to push the lock to the end. Although the fingerprints and pupil information were recorded, Bucky still didn't miss any chance to improve his experience. "Little D, this is Ms. Hill, come to say hello." In the front laboratory, Little D heard Bucky's voice and walked over unsteadily. The composite electronic eyes at the junction of his legs and an arm turned to Hill, and then he spread his palm to Hill and shook his wrist. How are you?" Hill looked at Little D with a bit of bewitching eyes, and also came up with the idea of Howard's same style. "I don't agree with this aesthetic. And she's kind of weird too, is that all? Well, this robot that can understand commands is amazing enough. It should be said that it is much more amazing than flying wings, but it is far inferior to the thrills. She has never been screwed, otherwise Little D would be much scarier than flying wing. This is Delamain. You can also call it Little D. I also made it for fun. You can try to give it some simple commands." Bucky connects to Little D remotely and sets Hill as one of the administrators. How do you say it? Well, Hill felt that she wanted to apologize for her indifference before, and looked at Bucky even more in shock. Such a magical little thing, unexpectedly did it casually? What kind of person is this guy in front of him? I used to think that I was a soldier, an agent, a killer, a novelist, someone with some special abilities, but now I really have the title of an inventor? Hill thought she wouldn't be any more shocked when Bucky told her that he was actually Einstein's reincarnation. I have to say that Bucky can score 359 points for this cup, and the 1 point less is because he is afraid that he will directly spiral into the sky. Come on. Let's see what Howard and I really invented, da. Oh my god. Want to try it? No, don't, it's too big, I'm afraid I can't bear it. Although it's a bit bigger, it has actually gone through countless adjustments. It is very ergonomic and will have a very comfortable experience. You will know it as soon as you enter. In front of the steel suit, Bucky asked Maria Hill if she wanted to try it out for herself. The completed version of the steel battlesuit is still similar to the appearance of the Iron Overlord, but it has become a red, blue and white line color scheme. On the protective armor of the arc reactor in the middle of the chest, there is a blue circular hollow white 5-pointed star printed on it. Logo. Originally, Howard wanted to use as is the bottom, the abbreviation of Iron Suit, and then a 5-pointed star was sandwiched between the two letters. It was overruled by Bucky's excuse that it didn't match the overall style. It was too black and humorous for him, and he couldn't help but laugh out loud. The lining armor is also directly installed into the steel battlesuit, becoming a one-piece structure, and further adjustments have been made, which can be adjusted according to the user's body shape, providing the most effective cushioning for different users' protection. Forget it. Let me take a look, are you come? Hill's expression was no longer shocked. It was because she was shocked too much this night. Although the steel suit was indeed more shocking than what she had seen before, with the previous buffer, she was very shocked. Calm down soon. And she's not a boy, she doesn't have much feeling for robots, she won't stare at the sight of the steel suit, and then say, cheat, Bucky, I'm so excited, let me go. So Bucky, who has been on the steel suit many times, just went in and activated it, let the steel suit levitate around, and then got off. How about it? It's really not my exaggeration, it's really a level enough to shock the world, right? Bucky, who has realized the cheating that he has blown, his nose is almost up to the sky. Now he can understand why his future nephew is so fond of showing off, and understand how he said, I am Iron Man. The romance of a man is to drive a huge robot and drink it in front of other people. The shock of other people is the key point. Being alone is boring, and making others' jaw drop by being a scorpion is the real dominance. Bucky is very satisfied with Hill's performance now. The person who showed shock to him is a glamorous beauty, and his cupping directly made her tear off the glamorous veil. What could be more exciting than this? What about? I didn't expect that you were still a genius. What kind of person are you? Hill leaned against the table, holding the whiskey glass that Bucky handed her in his hand, took a sip of the top-quality single-bud whiskey in the glass, and looked at Bucky with a little blurred eyes. Every time she thought she saw the real side of the man in front of her, this guy would never slip away and do something unreliable to anger her. But he showed a serious side, just like now, pointing to the invention that will surely shock the world, that serious look. Me? I am me, right in front of your eyes, just as you see it. I can't see you clearly at all, you are too close, The distance closer than nose-tip to nose-tip is naturally. Bucky admitted that he was wrong, very wrong, and of course there was nothing better than taking off Hill's glamorous veil. That is to remove the glamorousness and replace the veil with. Here is a word description of the process of the two calmly talking and interacting, but because it is too plain and simple, the movements are mechanical and boring, and the conversation only has a few words that are repeated repeatedly. It's cool to speak of, so I just skip it and don't write it, hereby make a note. The next day is dawn. Then why is it so hard to rise up in a short day? Yawn. In the lounge of the laboratory rest area, Bucky woke up and wanted to stretch himself, but found that there was an extra koala on his body that used himself as a pillow and hugged him tightly. I yawned. He did not expect that Hill was actually a unicorn. Although she is an agent, she often undergoes physical training and maintains a lot of strenuous exercise for a long time, so. But Bucky still noticed the jerkiness at the beginning. Time for sages. Only then did he know that when she was in the academy, she focused on her studies, and after graduation, she wanted to make a big career and become a female version of 007, but unfortunately she was full of theory in all aspects and had no practical experience. So even though Nephrite was in his arms, Bucky still restrained himself very well. I just thought about using Rose's girlfriend bondage escape technique in Friends to put Hill down and let her rest for a while. He was taken aback for a moment, then twisted a piece of hair on the bed, and stuck it into Hill's nostril. Hill sniffled, sneezed, opened his eyes blankly, his pupils gradually focused, and he could clearly see someone's smirking face, the hair in his hand, and her koala posture. Pia. A little ashamed, she slapped Bucky angrily. Every time I think this guy is a little handsome, every time. Even now this is the case. But after such a commotion, Hill also thought about it. Then felt some of the signs of normal health in the morning. Recalling the blur on the clouds, I can't help. Although I really want to, but if you don't want to show it to others for free, why don't you get up? Who? What time is it? Hearing this, Hill quickly wrapped the quilt with both hands, but when he wanted to sit up, he felt his waist go limp. It's only less than 7 o'clock, who knew Howard would come so early? Help me up quickly. Bucky didn't continue to appreciate Hill's coquettishness, although it was indeed rare. But as he said, he just wakes up habitually and looks at the pictures of all the connected cameras, at home and in the laboratory. It was discovered that Howard's stretched luxury car drove over early in the morning. It's just that although Bucky is fast, except for one aspect, he is fast, but he still has to take care of Hill. So Howard found someone in the laboratory, and then habitually came to the rest area, and when he pushed open the door of the restroom, Bucky and Hill had just tidied themselves up, but it was too late for the battlefield. Bucky. When I woke up in the morning, I suddenly thought of a good idea for a smart eye program, and you just happened to be here. Howard is getting old, sleeps very lightly, and suddenly came up with a good idea. He couldn't fall asleep at 5 o'clock. He came here early in the morning and found that Bucky happened to be there. He just wanted to share it with him. I found a little beauty with disheveled hair and wrinkled clothes standing beside Bucky. Isn't this Agent Maria Hill? Hey, what's your expression? Bucky found Howard looking at him with heartbroken eyes, and was instantly baffled. You don't envy and hate, are you heartbroken and want to fart? If you have something to say, just say it directly. I was just about to tell you that Hill is a trustworthy person. We don't need to hide our affairs from her. Bucky was a little baffled by Howard's reaction, but thinking that people are getting older, they are a little bit powerless, and the future nephew also suspected that he had experienced it personally. Actually, more than half of men have this problem, which is probably not good. Clearly express envy, jealousy and hatred. So find a way. Bucky is too careless, leaking secrets to outsiders or something. Can Maria Hill be considered an outsider? Bucky is sure, no one in this world understands her depth better than himself. However, when Bucky told Howard that he could trust Hill, he found that not only did the old man not take back his grief, but he wanted to beat his chest and feet. Of course, Howard wanted to beat his chest and feet, and even he had the urge to blacken his eyes. In his cognition, Maria Hill, Pierce's direct descendant, the favored junior, has always been the target to be tested. He thinks that it would be fine if Bucky met by chance. Will make mistakes. But I didn't expect that I was actually moved by true feelings, and was eaten to death? You have business to do, I will first. Hill was already embarrassed, and when he encountered such a situation where he couldn't figure out what was going on between the two of them, he thought to himself that he should avoid it for a while. Did you see it? Wait a minute, Howard, is there a misunderstanding here? Bucky vaguely came around a bit, thinking about Howard's attitude towards Nick Fury and Hill all the time, and what he thinks, there seems to be some subtle deviations. You don't think Hill is from Pierce, do you, and Nick Fury? Is not it? Howard also reacted. It seems that on this issue, Bucky has never been in agreement with him? If Guangxie is okay, man, but with Nick Fury, a black-haired egg, he can't be given the soul by Bucky, right? What Pierce man? Alexander Pierce? Our chief. Hill originally thought that Howard simply didn't like Bucky leaking their unannounced invention in advance, but now she found that there was a subtle gap between things in her imagination. Of course not, I believe Hill has nothing to do with Hydra. Hydra. The Hydra from the Red Skull. Director Pierce is a Hydra. It's not that Hill has never been shocked. In fact, since she met Bucky, she has been shaking non-stop, and she hasn't stopped at all. But suddenly the evil organization during World War E was involved, and she was still the director of their shield. This kind of bomber, which needs to be calculated in terms of power, came here, and she still screamed out. How much she hoped. This was still Bucky's sudden disappearance after playing handsome, this was still Bucky's routine. But just to tease her, Bucky asked Howard Stark to act with him in a serious manner, and she was cheated and admitted. Well, I trust your judgment, let's go out and talk. Howard and Bucky looked at each other, and finally nodded. Since Bucky rescued him, he has been getting along with him all the time, so he chooses to continue to trust Bucky's judgment. Then you go out first, we will be there in a while. Young people should be temperate. Now that he chose to trust, Howard quickly let go of his doubts, at least that's how he behaved. If you want me to say it several times, I'm only 2 years younger than you. Get out quickly and don't get in the way. Bucky shooed Howard away, and took Hill, who was a little confused, to the bathroom. I know you have a lot of question marks in your heart, but let's take care of it first, and then I will talk to you slowly. Oh. At first, Hill was just amazed at the superficial meaning of the news that Director Pierce was in contact with the evil organization Hydra in World War E. Then she realized the real seriousness of the matter, and felt that her entire perspective had been devastated. It was as if the meteorite that exterminated the dinosaurs hit her on the forehead with a click, and she lost the ability to think for a while. But it's no wonder that when the future Black Widow learned that Hydra was lurking in S.H.I.E.L.D., her faith collapsed directly, and she personally helped Captain America destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra together. In memory, Commander Hill, who was loyal to Nick Fury, also suddenly inserted a knife at the end to support the team in disbanding S.H.I.E.L.D. Hill is just in a daze right now, and it's really thanks to Bucky's big news hitting him when he has nothing to do, which made her get used to it in a daze. She was distracted by Bucky, who took her to wash up, tidied up her appearance, and was taken outside until she sat down. Bucky brought her a cup of coffee and subconsciously picked it up to drink. Be careful, it's hot. Bucky pressed Hill's hand, and snapped his fingers in front of her to bring her back to her senses, but found that her eyes were still a little dazed, and she couldn't help feeling a little worried, and then glared at Howard, which means now you believe up. Sorry, Agent Hill, for letting you hear such sensational news unprepared. Howard has dealt with all kinds of people all his life, and his vision is extremely vicious. If Hill was acting, he would have been recognized. What the hell is going on? Please tell me carefully. Hill finally came back to his senses, eager to know everything. Then we have to start from 1942. Say it, heavy, lighten it. This really has to start from World War E. We are talking about Hydra. Bucky basically told Hill the experience of his predecessor without reservation. Oh my god, after hearing this, Hill put his head in his hands, inserted his fingers into his hair, and his faith collapsed. And she still had a bit of resentment. You actually hid so much from me. Actually, if you think about it, besides the name Hydra, I'm not hiding anything, right? Hulk, the Punisher, the Hand, Iron Suit. I'm still me, but the mysterious organization is replaced by Hydra, and now, you really know everything. Is it too late for me to regret it? Of course, you can't just lift up your skirt and deny people after eating and wiping it clean. You have to take full responsibility for my innocence. Hill couldn't help rolling his eyes. All right, Bucky is still the same Bucky. The same guy who always pissed her off and made her handsome from time to time. Cough. Someone on the sidelines coughed lightly. He didn't expect the dog food to be so caught off guard that it would be stuffed when he was talking about business. So what are your plans? Although Hill still couldn't fully accept the fact, he finally managed to hold it together, and then remembered something. This shield has been eroded so deeply by Hydra. You two still don't do anything, just play with a big toy invented here? Sure enough, this guy Bucky will be unreliable after he is handsome. Maria Hill was persuaded by the fact that Bucky and Howard's affairs were of great importance, and that they should not act rashly, and they needed to be cautious. She just suffered a shock to her faith for a while, and wanted to do something impatiently, but she restrained her emotions a little, and she could also think that this is not a small problem, but a huge crisis. If one fails, the entire shield. Subversion. Even the combination of one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the world's top agents and killers can't just be reckless. You need to have a plan and act more cautiously. And her acceptance also made Bucky heave a sigh of relief. This is not Commander Hill who will be used to aliens, witches, and super soldiers in the future. After all, she is just a rookie agent who just came out of the academy. Bucky is really afraid that she will temporarily I couldn't accept it, and then blackened it directly. Then Bucky decided to simply take a day off. What artificial intelligence? Let Howard be a code farmer by himself, and he wants to accompany Hill well. Don't just make substantial progress, and then back off Hill. How will you fight back against Hulk's dog food in the future? So Bucky put a handful of dog food into Howard's mouth decisively and rudely, and took Hill away under his gaze of the opposite sex is not human, and women will only affect the speed of research and development. Where are we going? Go home to catch up on sleep. It's real sleep. I know you will have a period of time to digest this information. Well, I just need a little time. Take your time and don't stress. However, the pressure came immediately. Hill subconsciously followed Bucky into his house, and then saw little Daisy, who was going to school, with critical eyes. Although the two of them have taken care of it, yesterday's clothes still have uneven wrinkles after rolling. Little Daisy is not stupid, but very clever. She just didn't expect that her own uncle would have such a day, or rather, this day finally came, and the stinky uncle took a woman home. Fortunately, this woman treated Hill very well and took good care of her. She just gave Hill a small look to let her experience it for herself, and then went to school after saying a few words to Bucky. So women, the talent in this area is really innate, and it can be directly filled. No face to meet. After little Daisy and the nanny left, Hill covered his face and crouched in defense. What? Bucky didn't know why. I'm going back. Hill turned and ran. But Bucky grabbed him. Why bother with that? My bed is big and comfortable, just sleep on it. Okay. Then what are you doing? Sleep. Didn't you say it was just sleeping? Of course, sleep. Hill is totally on someone's boat, but her life hasn't changed much, well, except for her private time. She just had one more job, which was to secretly observe the agents assigned by S.H.I.E.L.D. at the Unborn nightclub, to identify who was trustworthy and who had secrets that no one knew. And Bucky also continued to devote himself to the finishing work of the final stage of the steel suit. A few days later, a fire broke out suddenly in a building under construction in Brooklyn. Flammable building materials were ignited on the 5th floor, followed by the explosion of acetylene and oxygen cylinders, causing the floor to collapse. Several workers were trapped in the building. Can't get in at all. However, at this critical juncture, several workers and the 2 firefighters who rushed in were about to disappear. Suddenly there was a strange roar in the air. Look. What's that? What are you looking at? Wang Defa. The people at the scene suddenly saw a red, blue and white robot flying in the sky, with flames erupting from both hands and feet, and rushed directly into the fire scene of raging fire and billowing smoke. Look. What is that thing? And it's a bird. And not only that, after a robot flew over, a birdman with metal wings flew over. Birdman was wearing a mask and goggles, so he couldn't see who it was. He glided in the sky and rushed into the floor below the fire. Then there were a few disturbing dull noises in the building, and I didn't know what the 2 strange guys were doing inside. But not long after, the robot reappeared on the edge of the building, and a steel wire rope suddenly ejected from its arm, with a sharp spearhead with a barb at the top, firmly nailed to the roof of another short building not far away. Then the robot waved its hand, and a few workers in black appeared behind them. The workers took off their belts or clothes one after another, and slid to the other side by the cableway. Then the robot turned back and pulled out 2 unconscious firefighters, one in each hand, and then the bottom of both feet erupted with flames and landed slowly. However, at this moment, the last worker who was sliding suddenly slipped his hand and fell straight down. The people around couldn't help but exclaim. But at this moment, the birdman flew out of the building just now, swooped down in a graceful curve in the air, grabbed the person, then lifted up, and just placed the person on the roof of the opposite building lightly, and then spread your wings and fly away. After putting down the 2 firefighters, the robot took a few steps back without waiting for people to surround it, and erupted flames from its hands and feet again. When people found that the robot was 4 meters high and so huge, they couldn't help but backed away in shock and responded with amazed eyes. It soared into the sky, drew an arc in the sky, and disappeared into the distance. Robots and birds aren't really gone, however. Such a conspicuous target in broad daylight will naturally be witnessed by someone. Moreover, the robot and the birdman stopped once in the middle, falling from the sky and intercepting a vehicle that was being chased by a police car. I don't know what method they used. The car suddenly overloaded its engine and stopped with black smoke. However, there were gangsters with guns and masks in the car. Not only did they catch him without a fight, but they dared to resist. Being subjected to a hail of bullets by the robot, a shock bomb was dropped among the gangsters, and then the birdman glided past, and even pulled out 2 AW-12 shotguns from both sides of his back to shoot. However, to the relief of the policemen who arrived, what birdman fired was only the anti-riot bullets of the shotgun, and the gangsters were knocked down to the ground, and then let the robot tie them up with the rope shot from the arm. Then the 2 disappeared into the sky again. This time, someone saw a strange UFO landing somewhere in Brooklyn, which belongs to the private domain of Stark Industries. Well, it's your first appearance, doesn't it feel bad? It's okay, but I can't take it anymore. The gangster part is a bit exciting. Just get used to it. Yeah, it's really fun, ha ha ha. Robot, Howard and Birdman, Bucky are both very satisfied with this debut. Manhattan. Stark Building. It is the one described as ugly by Bucky's good friend, Big Muscle Team. At this time, the headquarters of Stark Industries did not move to the City of Angels on the West Coast, but in New York. And at this time, after the sudden appearance of robots and birdmen, they were witnessed landing in the private domain of Stark's house in Brooklyn, and then never appeared again, because the private domain is a closed area and the gate is locked, no one can get in. Therefore, the entrance of the Stark building was surrounded by reporters, onlookers, etc. who heard the news, and even directly caused traffic jams. However, no one in Stark Industries, from the security guard at the gate to the group's second-in-command Obadiah Stanislav, was all in a daze, unable to understand the situation. Obadiah happened to be in New York. He called Howard but couldn't find anyone. He wanted to deal with the reporter urgently, but he didn't know what to say. Fortunately, such an embarrassing situation soon ended with the arrival of Howard's extended luxury car. Mr. Stark, may I ask if the robot that rescued the fire before was your new invention? Mr. Stark, may I ask if that was controlled by you yourself? Mr. Stark, say something. If Howard hadn't prepared security personnel in advance, 5 strong bodyguards would separate them from the zombie-like reporters who smelled like brains. The biggest news today will only be, Howard Stark, a generation of strange people, died under the impact of reporters. Fortunately, after Howard rushed into the building, not long after, Someone set up a podium at the entrance of the building and announced that a press conference would be held immediately, which prevented the zombies from rushing into the building. Who are ye? Why did you engage in such a sudden attack? It made me very passive. Improved. Sorry, Obi. Then tell me first, what exactly are you going to announce? Let's listen together. Howard simply said a few perfunctory words to Obadiah, who had been waiting in the lobby for a long time, and then left him a back view, which raised the vague uneasiness in his heart again. Looking at Howard's back view, he couldn't help but reveal a moment gloomy. Mr. Stark hash. Percent and. As soon as Howard appeared, a group of reporters excitedly asked questions, and a group of people shouted together, which sounded no different from brain. However, Howard just pressed his palms down, made a quiet gesture, and then kept silent. Gradually, from the hustle and bustle of people to silence, only the occasional camera shutter click and the sound of flashlights remain. Everyone. The robot that appeared in the fire before, to be precise, is an intelligent protective high-tech prosthetic body jointly invented by me and a companion, named by us as the Iron Suit, which I personally drove. Yes, I am Iron Man. Boom. Howard's speech was astonishing, like a thunderbolt on the ground, and instantly confused the people around him. Then the crowd erupted into frenzy in an instant, and the reporters screamed like zombies again. So Howard can't answer any questions. He can't say, yes, I have brains, but I can't give them to you, there are too many people to divide, right? So he also said to himself, and my companion is also the one who helped me rescue in the fire and helped me subdue the gangsters. The equipment on his body is called Falcon Individual Flying Wing, which is one of my ideas, followed by his follow-up production. Boom boom boom. Big news, big news, big news. Howard's news one by one is like a big bomb, constantly blasting people's hearts, and it is also like a shot of fanaticism, pushing people's apex to a higher peak. I think this is an epoch-making invention, and I will focus on emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence as the main research topic in the future. Therefore, I hereby solemnly announce that I will adjust the industrial structure of Stark Industries and resign from the position of CTO of the company. In the future, I will concentrate on new research and development projects, and I will establish a new specialized company. Hold a press conference to explain in detail. However, Howard seemed to think that the previous bomber was not powerful enough, so he directly threw a bomber that was bigger than all the previous bombers combined. Then he ran away, surrounded by more security personnel, and returned to the building. The reporters really seemed to have been hit by the T-virus this time, and they couldn't help but rushed over. However, Howard was not caught, but was blocked outside the gate by security personnel. Howard, tell me, this is just your whim, just want to make a joke. However, Howard was not caught by the reporter, but was blocked by Obadiah, who smiled forcefully and looked slightly ferocious. Obi, I still have things to do. Let's talk later. Don't worry, I will have a good talk with you. Howard just patted Obadiah on the shoulder, and without waiting for the other party's reaction, he ran away after saying that, went around to the back door, got in the car and walked away. And Obadiah's expression management is close to the verge of collapse, and he didn't go after Howard, but like a volcano on the eve of eruption, he suppressed his anger, maintained the final calm, and left directly, leaving the mess here do not care. You're making a fuss, today is going to be a New York Reporters Carnival. And Bucky was actually in Howard's car the whole time. Naturally, he didn't want to show up, so Howard only mentioned a companion without naming him. Bucky was in the car and also checked the news released by the system. System information. The series of missions, Iron Man Origin, has officially ended due to participating in the manufacture of the Iron Man suit and promoting the birth of Iron Man ahead of schedule. Reward 5,000 experience points, Orange Legendary Random Item Box 1. The experience value has reached the upgrade standard and is now upgraded. Character. James Buchanan Barnes, Level 8, Experience Points, 1,598 thousandths. Free Attribute Points plus 1, Free Feat Points plus 1. Attribute points are conventionally added to intelligence attributes, and expertise points are reserved for emergencies. Physical Body 11, plus 3, Movement 7, Annihilation 7, Fighting 8. Reaction 11, plus 3, Pistol 7, Assault 7, Sword 7, Technology 4, Engineering 4, Crafting 4. Intelligence 13, Intrusion Protocol 7, Quick Crack 6. Calm 14, plus 3, Stealth 10, Cold-Blooded 5, HP, 280/280ths, plus 30. Gas value. 190/190ths, plus 15, RAM, 18/18ths. Physical body 11, plus 3, movement 7, annihilation 7, fighting 8. Reaction 11, plus 3, pistol 7, assault 7, sword 7, technology 4, engineering 4, crafting 4. Intelligence 13, intrusion protocol 7, quick crack 6. Calm 14, plus 3, stealth 10, cold-blooded 5, HP, 280/280ths, plus 30. Gas value. 190/190ths, plus 15, RAM, 18/18ths. Howard Stark, a generation of strange man, has become a legend of the first generation and became the first generation of Iron Man, so the natural rewards must also match, and the legendary missions will naturally give legendary rewards. The huge amount of experience points not only allowed Bucky to be promoted to another level, but also directly gave him a legendary box. Bucky suddenly felt that during this period of time, he was obsessed with research, racked his brains when facing difficulties, couldn't sleep all night, thought hard. All the hard work was worth it. System information. Open an orange legendary level random item box. Get the item, Cyber Psychosis. Cyber Psychosis, orange legend, deadly type ultimate quick crack plugin that causes a cyber psycho-like effect on the target. Make the target's attack regardless of whether it is the enemy or the enemy. Make robots, drones, and mechs functions of identifying enemies disorder, set them as friendly to you, and let their guns turn around and aim at your enemies. If there are no other original allies around the target will perform a self-destruct behavior. Requires 13 RAM, duration 60 seconds, upload time 8 seconds, cooldown time 120 seconds. Cyber. Mental illness is actually a kind of implantation of too many prosthetic bodies. The body has a rejection reaction, and has doubts about self-cognition, resulting in mental problems, so there is the protagonist who is full of prosthetic bodies implanted all over his body. Is a hidden maximum cyber psychosis. Fortunately, Bucky's prosthetic body was given by the system, and he could hardly feel any difference at all, and he was originally possessed by a soul wearer, and it was not his original body, so it didn't matter at all. But Bucky knows how powerful cyber psychopaths are. In the game, they are second only to those gangsters who need to be punished by the monster lizard tank. And there is also a quick cracking skill in the game, which can cause a cyber psychosis-like effect on the enemy, which is the rage magic in other games. The plugin for this skill starts at the purple epic level, and it can only be made when Bucky has 16 points of intelligence. Although Bucky mainly adds intelligence attributes, he will definitely be able to make it himself in the future. But the direct orange legendary level also saves Bucky a lot of time and components required for production. Bucky is not picky at all, very satisfied with it. However, the effect of this plugin is somewhat too violent. It makes people go crazy. It's not that Bucky is against it, it's necessary to use it. It's just that during this period of time, Bucky completely stopped street activities, did not go to maintain street law in order to collect daily tasks and experience, and had no chance to experiment with the effect. And Howard announced that he is Iron Man, not just finished. More things are still waiting for the two of them. Howard was not surprised and died endlessly, but he just lost a big blow and ran away. After the announcement, he couldn't find anyone again, which drove the reporters in New York crazy. But it's not that the reporters have nothing to write about. On the contrary, the news is overwhelming. For a while, the front pages of New York newspapers are all about Howard, and most of them are headlines such as "Genius" or "Madman." And Howard? I just changed the lab with Bucky to do the final preparations for dropping a big bomb. Although Obadiah never came again, Maria came the afternoon after Howard announced. Not Hill, of course, but Maria Stark. She didn't want to interfere with her husband's work. Although Howard didn't hide anything from her, he often worked together as a husband and wife, such as when he first met Bucky. But Maria is not a super genius, she is just a good wife and mother, and she will not mix with Howard's scientific research work. She doesn't care about the stock price of Stark Industries. It's just like a roller coaster ride from Howard's announcement of the adjustment to the closure of the day. It goes up and down. 1 second, the rocket lifts into the sky, and the next second, it dives off a cliff. I don't know how many stockbrokers and investment companies have to be killed. She only cares about Howard using his research to personally drive that steel battlesuit, go to the fire scene to rescue, and even fight against gangsters. She is worried that he is so old that he still doesn't care about his body. Maria, don't worry, I know it well. Except when I need to make a public appearance, like the previous situation, I won't go to battle in person. I will leave it to Bucky to do it. Howard gently put his arms around his virtuous wife, comforting her softly. Bucky on one side couldn't help but sigh. This world is too dangerous, dog food is everywhere. There is also an urge to call another Maria, and the dog food will fight back. But Howard kept winking. Let's help him smooth things over first. Yes, Mrs. Stark, don't worry. But don't you still want to be that falcon? In fact, I am Gwower. Well, I am also a big eagle now. I have an ant now. It can be done simultaneously, you see. As Bucky said, the prosthetic eyes glowed with a faint blue light, followed by the sudden activation of the steel suit placed on the landing gear on one side, and the 3 e-cigarettes on the helmet in the shape of a zigzag lit up, and then lifted a mechanical arm, beckoning to this side, and then made a gesture of endless life, prosperity. This is the newly installed remote control interface in the helmet of the steel suit, which is convenient for Bucky to take over remotely. After all, Howard is over 70 years old, and he has to take a lot of medicine to maintain normal physiological functions. Although the design of the iron battlesuit has always focused on the protection of the operator, Howard still felt a little overwhelmed by the fire scene rescue and subduing the gangsters, running down a large circle. It seems that the car is running smoothly, but you let the old man take a car for 200 to 300 kilometers to try? The old man must suffer for several days. So unless there is a necessary public appearance, in the future, if there is any situation that requires Iron Man to be dispatched to stop crimes or rescue, Bucky will come. That's why a detachable remote control module was added, as it wasn't Bucky who drove it himself. Didn't the Big Eagle also make an appearance? The steel suit and the Falcon aircraft are the main conceptual products of the new company that Howard is going to establish. They are not mass-produced, but just let people know that there is such a thing, which is similar to the gameplay of the future nephew. So when they need to be dispatched at the same time, Bucky needs to be distracted. And with Bucky's intelligence and reaction attributes, as long as it's not too complicated, the two-line operation is completely busy. By the way, did Tony know the news? How did he react? You should know, after all, it has spread throughout New York and even the whole country. As soon as Howard heard it, and then looked at his wife's expression, he knew that his brat had gone somewhere else. Although this is quite a fatherly style, Howard is capable of making waves and doing business without delay. When you go back, call Tony home. Is there anything else? Maria had a keen sense that something was not quite right. Yes. Howard did not hide anything from Maria, and simply said a few words to her. Just tell Tony that he will be surrounded by reporters when he goes out these 2 days, so let him stay at home and take care of himself. It's not like you don't know. The more you talk about Tony, the more you are against you. Maria felt a little headache when she heard it. Why don't you just call your nephew here? I think he will be interested in these things. After all, he is Howard's son. Is it okay? When Maria heard Bucky's sudden interjection, she couldn't help but look at Howard. Why didn't she want the father and son to have a good relationship? Of course, we still have more explosive news that hasn't been announced, and there should be something that Tony is interested in. I heard that you have something you want me to help with? Don't you want me to help you attract business for your nightclub? It's been a long time since I saw you. Miss me? I never thought that you still have this talent. Seriously, you really it's not that I've never met. Maria sent her eldest nephew Tony to the laboratory in the evening. When this guy came, he still smelled of alcohol, mixed with the usual scent of powder, and it was a little bee that flew into the flowers. I don't know how Maria made him obediently come here. But in the end, it made the eldest nephew complain a little bit, and he didn't want to vent his anger with his kind mother, so he came here to speak venomously. Howard met Tony, thinking the last time he saw him was a month ago? 2 months ago? Naturally, he missed his son very much, but when he saw his son's virtue, he felt an indescribable and inexplicable impulse. This Bucky can understand, because he is in the same mood. Simply put, this is the urge to whip this brat on the doorframe with a belt. But it's not enough not to let Tony come, although Bucky tried to keep a distance from Howard's family because of Hydra's attention at the beginning. But now Bucky and Howard are deeply bonded. They both have a combination of superheroes, and they have some preparations for certain people. Rather than letting the eldest nephew Tony stay at home obediently, it will only arouse his rebellious psychology. Let him continue wandering around. Why not call him over? Let him participate, at least let Howard take care of him personally. But it was Tony's mouth that really owed him to sew it up. It's not for you to help, but for you to work and provide you with a job. Why should I work for you? In fact, the eldest nephew Tony is a poisonous tongue, and a talker is a talker, but as soon as he entered this laboratory, he saw the environment inside, various mechanical equipment, and those that were originally planned to be installed on the steel battlesuit, but give up unused equipment. There is also Little D, the wonderful robot that Bucky is adjusting, and next to Little D, there is a big white fat man who looks like a big ball of cotton, who is indescribably dumbfounded and indescribably cute. He inherited Howard's genius brain and the soul of a mechanic, and he has long liked this place. But you have to be stubborn, because you want to eat. Hey. Do you need to play such a trick? Bucky's words made his nephew Tony explode like a cat whose tail has been stepped on. Tony, it's time for you to grow up, and you can't mess around like this all day long. This is irresponsible to yourself and a waste of your wisdom. This is my freedom, you have no right to take it away. Son, I didn't deprive you of any power. I just suspended the trust fund I set up and froze the secondary card of the credit card in my name, that's all. Me. Relying on the trust fund and Howard's black card secondary card, Tony, who is handsome, is like a balloon that has been punctured, and the whole person seems to have leaked air. It's not that he didn't know that he was squandering, enjoying the luxury of getting something for nothing, and one day he would have to take responsibility, and his clever mind couldn't have imagined it. And he himself sometimes feels that it is a pity that he has such a smart head that he doesn't need to use it to display his talents. But with his father Zuyu in front, he really devoted himself to science, and he had to compare everything with his father. It was almost impossible to win the competition. So wouldn't it be nice to spend Dad's money wandering around with him? Anyway, his family's billions of dollars in property, even if it shrinks in the future, it will only make life a little more boring, and he can still bear it. But now, Howard has made up his mind and directly generalized, and he is still dying in one step. Tony really has no power to resist. It's all you. Tony couldn't help but glared at a certain crowd eating melons resentfully. He now seriously suspects that the annoying violent man in front of him is the product of his father's flirtatious youth, and he is here to take his father's position in his heart. Wouldn't it be good for them to let you go and degenerate? In short, Tony, you have to be self-reliant now. However, I don't mind helping you one last time and offering you a job directly. How about it? Do you want to accept it? In terms of remuneration, it can be favorable. Hey. I graduated from MIT at the age of 17, and then I took a double master's degree in 1 year. Will I not be able to find a job? Why do you have to work for Dad? The treatment is favorable. Hey, how can a genius like me not be treated favorably? How good is it? One trick. Eat all over the world. Howard just one trick. Talk about money. Tony can no longer be willful. You can consider unfreezing part of the trust fund for you. Let's say it earlier. Actually, your place looks okay, and it's not impossible to help you. Seeing his nephew's sculpted appearance, Bucky couldn't help teasing him. Let's go then, I'll take you to get a rag and a mop. Is it used to put it on you, a little monster with wonderful aesthetics? When it comes to mopping the floor, you don't necessarily have to be more professional than Little D, you have the ability to compare. Such an old-fashioned aggressive method is simply low. Okay. Now that we know each other, let's start working. Tony, you follow Bucky first. The two quarreled a few words, but Howard stopped them, but Tony discovered a new slot. Bucky? Aren't you Johnny? Bucky looks at Howard, who nods. Actually, my name is James Buchanan Barnes, and everyone I know calls me Bucky. Oh. Huh. Tony didn't pay attention to it at first, thinking that it's nothing special to have a long name, but suddenly his eyes widened. Once in 1942. Bucky explained the ins and outs again, and he was quite proficient in this set. So there are so many stories in it, which is pretty good. Have you ever thought about writing it into a novel? After Tony finished listening, although he looked shocked at first, don't let him say that he was surprised with his mouth, it doesn't really matter. Let's talk about my work. I'm not writing your autobiography for you, am I? Bucky thought. The eldest nephew was really born into the right family, but anyone with less money in another family would have been beaten to death long ago. Come and see this. But Bucky didn't bother with his eldest nephew, he just took him to a computer and let him look at a piece of code displayed on the screen. It was the source code of the smart program of Little D in the big white cotton ball. Because Howard said that the image of Little D was too weird, Bucky simply replaced it with the most invincible cute creature in his impression. With an oval head, a pair of dripping black eyes, a fat body and short legs, he is Baymax Dubai of the Supermarines. And sure enough, Dubai kills both young and old. Both Howard and Tony were softened by this cute creature at first glance. As for showing the core source code of the smart program directly to the eldest nephew. Naturally, Bucky would not be afraid that the future maker of the world's first Jarvis would steal his technology. He wished that Tony would learn it, and then inspire his super genius to help him perfect this program. Not to mention that it might trigger a mission like Jarvis' origin. Just by learning 2 tricks from Tony, Bucky felt that it was worth the money. Although he himself has the intellectual attributes no less than that of a super genius, he still needs to learn from Howard and Tony for the spark of inspiration of a super genius. I see, Obi, I will think about it carefully, so that's it. By the way, remember to watch the news tomorrow. 3 days later, because Howard could not be found, and Iron Man and Falcon did not show up again, the whole New York was frantically looking for Howard, and the stock price of Stark Industries continued to fluctuate. It is not Obadiah's personal assets that have suffered losses because of this, but all shareholders including Howard himself. Although Stark is the largest individual shareholder of the group, if Obadiah joins all other shareholders, he can initiate a board of directors and initiate a vote to remove Howard from the position of CEO. And the military also expressed doubts about this, although they also want to get the 2 seemingly powerful gadgets invented by Howard. If the American army can be equipped with the flying iron can, why worry about the world? Are there so many places where they don't feel their freedom? However, Stark Group, the military's largest arms supplier, is going to transform, which itself has a profound impact on the military, and it can even rise to the issue of homeland security, and there will be a lot of loss of interests. But Howard is determined. Obadiah, the military liaison, no one can tell. Even people in S.H.I.E.L.D. have tentatively asked, since Iron Man and Falcon were invented by Howard, one of the founders, is it equivalent to being invented for S.H.I.E.L.D.? Howard naturally let the person who asked him stay where he was cool. He and Bucky, as well as the newly joined Tony, are also intensively making final preparations before the press conference. The eldest nephew Tony deserves to be Howard's seed, one of the strongest super geniuses in the world in the future, although at first he wasted too much time in his studies because he was too behind in progress, and many things need to be explained to him by Howard or Bucky. But he quickly entered the state, and gradually he no longer needed the explanations of the 2, but was able to put forward some opinions. In just 1 day, he kept up with the rhythm, and then even began to lead the improvement and expansion of the intelligent program. Bucky sighed. He really found the right person. If he let himself eat slowly, he didn't know how long it would take to complete the SMART program of Dubai and Xiao-Di. And once again became the leader of a super genius. Bucky helped to use the spoiler pose to open the cheat, and there was also a physical cheat. After he acted as a supercomputer toolman, the progress directly changed from walking to rocket launching, and directly soared into the sky. The next day, Tony, who stayed up all night and fell asleep on the keyboard, woke up in a daze, and found that his father and Bucky were gone. Even with the steel suit and Falcon flying wings, Dubai is also gone. Only little D stood beside him, quietly. Tony's eyes widened instantly. Seeing that because I complained too much, Bucky, that nasty guy, made more modifications, changed from 2 legs to 3 legs, added a mechanical arm, and a spine with a reverse curvature, but no head. Even more bizarre, and even horrifying little D, who was constantly gripping and gripping with mechanical claws beside him. He yelled out in an instant, "Don't ask. Bucky's old popsicle must be playing tricks on him. Your father is so out of tune, you are also very distressed?" Because Bucky wasn't there, he could only vent his anger to the air, and Tony simply complained to little D. However, little D just tilted his head, that is, the curved extension of the spine, and there was a horror show. It and Dubai are far from being called artificial intelligence, and are still at the level of artificial mental retardation, but it will not be as frightening as before when it was asked for a screwdriver and it directly took the screwdriver. It can effectively listen to various single instructions and basically respond correctly, but it still has no IQ at all. After all, it's only been 3 days, and Tony is far from being the perfect super genius in the future. The spark of his inspiration is all due to his talent in this area. So now little D and Dubai already have some seemingly autonomous behavior patterns and vague intelligence, but there is still a long way to go before Jarvis-like smart housekeepers in the future. Little D, go and pour a cup of coffee for the great Tony. Little D's spine turned 180 degrees, the back leg became the front leg, and the strange walking posture went to pour coffee for Tony, which made Tony, who couldn't bear to look directly at him, complain about someone's aesthetics again. I don't know if the press conference has started yet? Tony scratched his head, followed him to the rest area, took an apple and took a bite, then pressed the remote control to turn on the TV. It's not that Howard and Bucky didn't let Tony go to the press conference. In fact, Howard was so relieved because of Tony's performance that he even wanted Tony to directly operate the steel suit to appear in the past. Bucky also raised his hands in favor. Nephew, after all, it is time to take over. But Tony refused this opportunity to be in the limelight, to be the biggest in the next 10 years, without hesitation. His pride did not allow him to accept this charity. In his opinion, he didn't help a lot. He didn't participate in the most basic theory and initial construction, and the most difficult process of creating something from scratch. None of the projects are indispensable. His arrival only shortened the research and development time of his father and Bucky, and it would only take a little more time without him. He thought his father couldn't do it, and he didn't think that Bucky, who had so much creativity and was no less knowledgeable than him, couldn't do it. He thought it was because his father took him to play, and Bucky deliberately gave in. He wouldn't allow himself to admit that he played a vital role here, so he wouldn't take credit for it. Unless one day, by his own power alone, he invents and creates better works, he will never admit that there is any connection with everything, and anyone who asks her will say that he has never participated. He was coerced by his father to freeze the trust fund to come to work. Is it very face-saving to say it? So, shouldn't it be time to work a little harder? Well, let's have some fun first. The card that was finally unsealed, wouldn't it be too sorry for Dad's ardent expectation if he didn't max it out? Having said that, Tony still sat there, chose a news station at random, and stared intently at the news screen. The news was about the press conference still being held at the gate of Stark Tower, and just at this time, the steel suit and the Falcon fell from the sky, and the Falcon was still carrying an engineering plastic box the size of a suitcase in his hand. The chest of the steel battlesuit was opened, and inside was a handsome old man Howard in a suit and leather shoes. Bucky, who is equipped with Falcon flying wings, is wearing a tight-fitting aramid fiber combat uniform, with goggles and a half-covered mask. When Howard appeared, he did not follow him. Instead, he put down the box and opened it. Dubai let go of his anger. Dubai automatically inflated and returned to its original shape, looked left and right, his black eyes blinked, and instantly caught the attention of many people. Even Howard and Bucky didn't pay attention. Seeing this, Bucky nodded in satisfaction, and sure enough, Dubai's cuteness was all killing, and then he directly activated the flying wings and flew away. This is Howard's stage alone, so let him show off. I announce that the new company will be named Stark and Lind Intelligent Technology. It is a brand new independent company dedicated to the research and development of artificial intelligence assistance systems. In the future, it will launch a brand new concept, that is, intelligent home. Howard talked eloquently at the press conference, showing the concept of the future artificial intelligence assistant that Bucky told him to help manage all electronic devices in the home. It is still the beginning of the internet, and the high-speed network has just begun to lay out the baseline, but Howard proposed the idea that only science fiction movies can be made like this. But Howard didn't fool people with the concept of maglev cars during World War E, but he brought an artificial intelligence out and demonstrated it live, asking Dubai to greet him with its adorable electronically synthesized voice, and executing his order. He even asked Dubai to take the time to inflate it, proving that it was just a mechanical skeleton inside, not a doll operated by a real person. People are not blowing up the fraud first, and then realizing it in the future, but cashing in on the fraud on the spot. How can this not be shocking? So the steel suit is no longer the protagonist today, but Howard and Dubai. After all, the steel suit cannot enter the family, and according to Howard's idea, Dubai will be such an invincible cute creature. Will everyone have one in the future? Is this worth it? Why Lind and not Barnes? Does the name have any special meaning? And Bucky, who only took one side of the picture and then disappeared, went back to the laboratory and watched with Tony as the reporters scrambled to ask Howard questions. But apparently the elder nephew Tony's concerns are subtly different. Oh, that's actually the name of one of the main characters in another novel I want to write. Oh? What novel? Although Tony is not very interested in Harry Potter, even after knowing that Bucky is the author, he even made fun of his childish writing. But then Bucky said that he was actually the author of the Song of Shark Grass, so he cupped it and killed him. He still prefers Shark Grass, after all, it is accompanied by pictures. Cyberpunk 2077. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the web browser. Have you considered it? Are you interested in developing it with me? The present world of this world is also at the beginning of the establishment of web servers. Now there is not even a serious web browser. If you want to surf the internet, you must use the world's first web page creation tool invented by the founder of the internet to browse. 1 year later, a genius named Mark Anderson, together with his companions, invented the Mosaic browser based on the Next computer, followed by the Netscape browser, which opened the veil of the internet to the public. Bucky has been suffering from this obviously modern society, but he can't access the internet, and the exchange of information is extremely scarce for too long. He originally wanted to code words, sell books, and wait patiently, but Howard suddenly had the idea of building a powered exoskeleton, and was guided by him to build a steel battlesuit. The two have now jointly established a new company. Bucky, the co-creator of the steel suit and the Falcon flying wing, and the creator of Dubai, has invested in technology and occupies half of the new company's shares. The new company focuses on smart technology, but it doesn't even have an internet, which is too inconsistent with the company's concept of technology entering the home. Therefore, in addition to Iron Man and Falcon as living signs and gimmicks, the new company will focus on intelligent assistance programs, and also add web browser development. Although your proposal is very tempting, it is not suitable for me, so you should ask my father for help. Tony also listened to the blueprint that Bucky showed him. In the future, everyone will be able to access the internet. All information can be shared on the internet, and a colorful online life is very exciting to think about. But super geniuses have their own personalities, and he really couldn't accept it, and Bucky came up with an excellent idea, and then he joined, feeling that it would be overwhelmed by Bucky again. And although he is not incompetent, he really doesn't have much interest. It's not that he doesn't like the internet surfing that Bucky described to him, but he gets excited when he thinks about it. But he is not interested in developing it by himself. He is not a person who raises his own cattle just to eat steak. His interest is still in machinery and artificial intelligence, and he already has some ideas. He doesn't want to partner with Bucky and his dad at all. If he didn't research something that surpassed Howard and Bucky's invention, and really made something famous, he would rather sweep the floor for others than work for them. Although both of them said it was a cooperation, but his great Mr. Tony is not free, does not need other people's creativity. Does he think he has no creativity? Regarding Tony's refusal, Bucky didn't ask too much, although the spark of inspiration from Tony's genius can greatly shorten the creation time. But it's not that he can't play it alone, just take it slow. As for Howard, the new company was announced, and a lot of waste is waiting to be done. This Bucky is really not good at it, and Howard has established Stark Industries from scratch, and the group also has many subsidiaries. This is what he is best at. Matter. But it will also consume a lot of his energy. The new company is not just talking, although Howard really has ulterior motives and wants to use this to force some people. But Dubai has figured it out, and the concept of smart home that Bucky said really moved him. He really wants to do more things while he still has the energy to leave more for the world. Wonderful, but also let future generations have more things to remember him. As a result, Tony lost control again, but just when Howard wanted to find a way to bring Tony by his side, such as being his personal assistant, let Tony participate in the establishment of a new company, and he also wanted Tony to inherit his many mantles. But his wife Maria told him that Tony didn't know what stimulated him. As soon as he got home, he locked himself in the garage, listening to violent metal rock, wondering what to think, and asked Howard not too harsh. Howard and his son had a tacit understanding, and they understood Tony's thoughts at the first time, so he was very pleased again. He only hoped that Tony would turn his prodigal son back and live up to his talent. As for whether to inherit his mantle, it is not mandatory. And Bucky is not idle, perfecting a piece of work, especially works such as steel suits, Falcon aircraft, Big White and Little D, is basically endless. With the pace of technology, it has been to Bucky. There is no end in sight. Moreover, Bucky still needs to control the Iron Man suit, and then personally go into battle as a Falcon, continue to appear in public, perform some rescue work, or fight against crime, so that the names of Iron Man and Falcon will continue to be deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. All of a sudden, the focus of New York and even the entire United States was on Howard and his stunning invention. Little did they know, this was just the beginning, and more shocking things were yet to come. New York, Hamptons, Long Island, Stark's house. Master Tony, it's time to eat. The old butler Jarvis, who is very gentlemanly, looks at the shape of his mouth, and this should be what he said. Because he was in Tony's garage, surrounded by deafening violent metal rock music. And Tony was sitting on the high chair in front of the workbench, but he didn't do anything, he just shook his head there, gesticulating with his fingers in the air. Like a teen who wants to play garage music but can't even play the guitar. However, Jarvis frowned slightly because the music was too loud, and looked at his young master Tony with a little relief. In the eyes of the old butler, compared to going to nightclubs, police stations, hospitals, etc., to pick up Tony who is either drunk or with a bruised nose, and to help him get rid of gangsters or women, such a young master is already a prodigal son. Master Tony. Jarvis went to stand beside Tony, but Tony was still indulging in narcissism. He had no choice but to pat Tony on the back lightly. Don't try to sneak up on me. As if touching the switch, Tony jumped up from the chair in a jerk, posing in a kung fu pose. He thought it was Bucky who asked Little D to scare him again. Only then did he realize that he had parted ways with that irritating guy a long time ago, and he would not see the stupid and cute Dubai and the frightening and refreshing Little D in a short time. What? Tony also found that he couldn't hear what he said, so he turned off the music with the remote control and asked again, "What's the matter?" "Dinner is ready, Master Tony. Madam invites you to dine with me. Just go and buy me a cheeseburger. Oh, bring a bucket of iced Coke over here, and I won't go there. I just thought of an idea, and I was interrupted by you. But there are guests at home, madam, please go and say hello." "Who? Azobi here." Tony was a little strange, and in his heart, compared to his father Howard, who he didn't see often for a month, he looked at him with incompetent eyes when he saw him. Still able to get along with him, Obadiah who can brag and fuck with him, and the relationship is slightly better. No, it's Ms. Maria Hill and Ms. Daisy Barnes. Who? The girlfriend and daughter of Mr. Robert Johnny Lind. Oh, see you then. Tony scratched his head, but he didn't care about anyone else, whether he was Dad's business partner or a celebrity. Vulgar mortals are not qualified to have the great Tony as company. But Bucky is the opponent he wants to challenge now, the target he wants to defeat in terms of creativity and intelligence, that is to say, he recognizes Bucky as someone who can communicate with him on an equal footing. So it is also necessary to show basic politeness. Respecting your opponent means respecting yourself. It's definitely not that he thinks that if he throws face at that guy's girlfriend and daughter, then that guy will turn around and use some weird ideas to spoof him. Master Tony is very personable, absolutely worthy of it. My dear mother. And this beautiful lady and this lovely little lady, it is an honor to entertain you too. Tony originally wanted to show off his humor, but when he saw Hill in a black evening dress, his expression froze instantly. Isn't this the glamorous but violent female manager at Leicheng nightclub? Tony kept his word. He told Bucky that he would visit his nightclub again, so he went again, but the next few times were just for fun. After all, the Afterlife nightclub is indeed a good place to have fun. But one time, he saw a glamorous beauty, and just wanted to go over to tease her, so he sent the beauty to make two of his subordinates grab a little gangster who sold jelly beans, and smashed a glass of wine on his head. There was a splash of blood on his face, and then as if nothing had happened, he was dragged away by his subordinates like a dead dog. This made him flinch in an instant. For this kind of violence, it's better to appreciate it from a distance. And he also found out that this glamorous beauty, also named Maria, is the owner of this nightclub. At first, he thought Bucky was exaggerating when he said that he was the owner. Later, he found out that Hill was the general manager of the nightclub. Looking at it this way, isn't it true that the whole family does not enter the house? Violent girlfriends are also violent. It was the first time for Hill and little Daisy to see Tony. Hill was still a little strange. The young master of the Stark family in front of him was not as unpopular as Bucky said. A polite person? She didn't know that Tony was just afraid that Hill would expose him and let the other Maria know that he went to the nightclub to fool around. Little Daisy was a little stage frightened. She was a child who ran away from a foster family. After being adopted by Bucky, she just lived a life without worrying about food and clothing in an ordinary environment in Brooklyn. She had only seen this kind of big villa on TV, but she never thought that one day she would be able to appear here as a guest. Fortunately, the little guy is super cute at the level of tricking me to have a daughter again, and Maria likes her quietly. By the way, how do you remember to be a guest? My mother invited you. Bucky and Howard are very close, so close that Tony once suspected that Bucky was Johnny Lind, the romantic product of his father who had been separated for many years. But it is only limited to the relationship between the two, but it is not a good family. Tony felt that the purpose of the two of them was not just a simple visit. So after dinner, while chatting in the living room, by pouring wine, Tony avoided his mother and asked Hill in a low voice. Hill just shrugged. Although she knew far more than Tony, Tony didn't even know that there was such an organization as S.H.I.E.L.D. Although the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D. was in Washington, D.C., there was no sign saying that it was the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D. But what she knew was actually very limited. It's not that Bucky is hiding it from her, but that Howard has some plans, and even Bucky won't tell them. Howard is habitually carrying out information division and management. He has been like this all his life, and he doesn't feel that there is any problem at all. All she knew was that Howard had arranged for her and little Daisy to come here, and that there were quite a few agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. lurking around the villa, as if something was about to happen. But since she asked Bucky, and Bucky asked her to bring little Daisy with her, it must be safer here, right? However, just when Hill thought so, Mr. Stanislav, why are you here, and you didn't say hello? The people behind you. What do you mean? From the other side of the hall, the voice of the old butler Jarvis, who was originally polite, suddenly became surprised and anxious. Hill felt something was wrong for a moment, but before the people in the living room went out to look, the old housekeeper brought Obadiah in. To be exact, he was pointed at the muzzle by a heavily armed soldier in combat uniform next to Obadiah, and came in with a look of panic on his face. Obi. Hey. What are you doing? Obadiah Stani rushed into the Stark family's villa with a group of heavily armed fighters, and pointed the Stark family at gunpoint. Stark mother and son were taken aback for a moment, not scared, just confused. I just can't figure it out, Obi, who has a good family relationship with them. Which one is this acting in? How to bring a group of gunmen? Hill secretly scolded Bucky for being unreliable. Is this the so-called safety? She wanted to draw out her gun for a moment, but found that she hadn't carried a gun for a long time, and even if she had a gun, the dozen or so soldiers with assault rifles on the opposite side would only irritate them by raising their guns. Sorry, Maria, Tony, to bother you so late, but Obadiah is still like the boss of Mafia, wearing a tailor-made suit, a white scarf around his neck, holding a thick cigar in his hand, saying sorry, but his expression is cloudy, always revealing some ferocious color. I have some important matters to discuss with Hoy. As you all know, he has been avoiding me recently, so I have to make a fool of myself, find an opportunity that prevents him from avoiding me, and have a good talk with him. Obi, is there some misunderstanding? You and Howard have conflicts at work, you can talk about it slowly, why? Maria didn't care much about Howard's business issues, she didn't know what could stimulate Obadiah to such a degree. Tony guessed directly, Obi, if it's for the old man's new invention and new company, we can discuss and solve any problems. He originally wanted to ease the situation, but when he spoke, he felt blocked in his heart. Compared with Maria, he was the most unacceptable. Obi would make such an extreme choice. The problem is that I can't even see other people. Do you think I don't want to talk to him? How many times have I tried to talk to him? He never takes me seriously. I'm just one of his men wage earners, not even your dog. However, it was Maria's shock and Tony's grief that stimulated Obadiah's last nerve that he could barely maintain, causing him to explode hysterically. How many years have I waited on that self-righteous megalomaniac and troublemaker? He never took me seriously. The Stark group is also my blood. He said he didn't do it. He also talked with others people set up the smart technology of the nonsense Stark and Lind. Where is the Stark and Stanley industry, in my fantasy? That's it. It's just a matter of business. If you can't agree, talk slowly, and if you can't agree, just kidnap the ticket. The Stark family, Jarvis, who was called a dog by Obadiah, and Maria Hill, all looked at Obadiah, who was mad. And this is logically unreasonable. Obadiah can mobilize the board of directors to use normal business methods, even abnormal business behaviors, or even illegal behaviors that violate business laws. But you can't directly face the charge of life imprisonment and do such an extreme thing. What do you know? And what do you know? In short, blame Howard if you want to blame. Now you all be honest, don't make small moves, get acquainted. I don't want to make it too ugly. It's not that ugly. Although they really wanted to ask this question, everyone looked at Obadiah with a ferocious face, like a crazy gambler who lost his life after losing, and shut his mouth wisely. Hill put his arms around the frightened little Daisy. He had already scolded Obadiah chapter 98 times in his heart, and then scolded some unreliable guy 780 times. When he was needed most, where did he go? Up. Moreover, there are so many agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. outside, but Obadiah led someone to break in directly. In other words, Obadiah is not just the people around her. She has no idea how to get out of the predicament in front of her. Nothing. Obadiah took out his mobile phone and called Howard. Hey, Hoy, it's me, Obadiah. Where am I? I'm at your house. Okay. I'm waiting for you here. Oh yes, when you come back, remember to bring your steel suit and your little follower. Also, you have to take off your steel armor at a distance of 100 meters from the house, as does your servant. You only allow people to come over, otherwise. As Obadiah said, he stroked his big bald head with a cigar in his hand, and then waved his hand. Behind him, someone opened a box and took out two things that looked like bulletproof vests. Do you still remember that the company originally developed a stealth explosive that could evade existing detection methods? It was originally a product with a large market, but you dismissed it lightly. But in fact, I never gave up, and I've sold quite a few, and now, there are two bomb vests that Maria and Tony will be wearing. Obadiah hung up the phone, Seeing Maria's sad and Tony's sad and angry expressions, subconsciously couldn't bear it for a moment, but immediately became vicious again. It's still the same sentence, blame Howard if you want to blame. Oh? Don't you blame yourself for being too incompetent. It's obvious that you always want to look up to my old man and beg for mercy in front of him, you. Oh. Tony, who was put on a bomb vest, finally couldn't bear it anymore. He was angry, hated and sad, and wanted to talk about it regardless, but Obadiah was already prepared, and even waved his hand and asked his subordinates to stick it with tape. Shut Tony's mouth. Boom. Then the burly bear like Obadiah walked over and punched Tony hard in the stomach, causing him to curl up into a shrimp in an instant. I have put up with you, you disgusting little waste, for a long time. Do you think I like to play around with you, a little bastard? Do you know how much I want to run you over? Hoy back then should have shot you in a condom. Enough, Obadiah. Enough. Maria threw herself on Tony, and instantly turned into a mother protecting the cub, yelling at Obadiah. And the other Maria, who was also protecting her own cub, was about to cry from anger. Where the hell is that damned bastard Bucky? Yeah, where is Bucky? Why haven't you moved at all until now? Even if he is not here, MTOD-12 small flathead is here, hanging on the ceiling all the time, in invisible mode. But why is there no movement at all? Naturally, Bucky lacked the skills to separate himself, and even more so to distract. He didn't even have time to control the small flat head and directly smash Obadiah's big bald head. Isn't Howard talking on the phone with Obadiah? Bucky wasn't with Howard either. In fact, Howard is in the Stark Tower, busy with something there, and Bucky is actually not far from the villa. He is in Hampton, another small villa that Howard owns, which is much smaller. He was also ready to be dispatched at any time, but he encountered a more dangerous situation than here.